Sunday night is race night here on RaceRoom, and we are ready to go for 90 minutes of action around the classic Hockenheimring venue. And of course, we're taking out the Super Tourers. Some of these drivers have a little bit of experience in this category, courtesy of the RaceRoom Super Touring Championship that was on last year. Will they be the ones to come out on top, or will someone else maybe find their way to the front? It's myself, Lewis McGlade, it's John Monroe in the commentary booth. And John, we love ourselves some Super Tourers, we love ourselves some excitement. We've both raced these cars across a whole multitude of platforms over our years of sim racing. This is a cracking combo.
This might well be the most excited I've been for a RaceRoom special event this year. We've had some fantastic events in the past, don't get me wrong, some great combinations, but to be able to witness a Super Touring battle like this over 90 minutes at an incredible circuit like Hockenheim, classic of course, the old layout through the forest, lots of long straights, it's going to be slipstreaming galore, big braking moves, difficult runs through the hairpin, through the chicanes, I should say. It's going to have everything. And yeah, I, for one, can't wait to get started. I know, Lewis, as you said, me and you have had plenty of experience racing these cars in the past. And I think we both get a bit giddy when we have a Super Touring car race to look forward to.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the big notes of Super Touring, generally, if you don't really know, obviously classic touring cars, it's not just one type of drive they have in this. You know, like what we have in obviously with the TCR regs and stuff where it's just front wheel drive. None of that here. We've got a whole mix, John.
We do. We've got rear-wheel drive BMWs being represented, four-wheel drive Audi A4s, and we've also got, of course, the majority of drivers in front-wheel drive machinery. 8 cars to pick from. We do have balance of performance in play, which means we should see a big variety of cars, and each car will have different strengths in different places, but overall it should be very, very competitive indeed. And of course, Lewis, being the top split that's being broadcast here tonight, we should have some of the best drivers across the whole of the RaceRoom platform duking it out. So the quality of the grid's going to be high, the car choice is excellent, it's an epic circuit, and we of course have many other splits happening, not on broadcast, but happening simultaneously to this race now, so it's going to be great.
Yeah, wisely informed. It's 8 different splits. Obviously, again, yes, we are watching the broadcast bit, but it's kind of one of those bits where we remind ourselves this race is happening again and again and again, going down to split 8. Love to see people jumping into these cars because they're so different. Obviously, normally when we do our special events here on RaceRoom, we tend to see, like, you know, say the Bathurst 2 hour that we had not too long ago. GT's taking it on. We do some multi-class at Daytona. The GTs and such are typically the ones that we more see used. But something like this, the Super Touring cars and a 90-minute race, pretty abnormal.
It's very abnormal because in real life, we normally witness Super Tourers back in the day racing in short bursts, sprint races, multiple races per weekend, for example. But this is going to be a bit of an endurance-style race for a Super Tourer. Now, we haven't not seen Super Tourers taking part in endurance races in the past, but on this platform, the intensity of the racing is going to have to carry for 90 minutes. And I don't think the intensity, Lewis, is necessarily going to drop. It's going to be so hard for anyone to break away at the front to try and get away from the slipstream because the straights here are so long. Heavy braking zones into those chicanes, as I say. And as long as you can just keep within maybe 4 or 5 tenths of the car in front, you should be able to pull yourself along the straight and catch up again, make that ground back up. So we could see some tactical fuel saving. We could see all sorts of stuff here. And, you know, these cars don't have the driver aids that we're used to seeing with the GT3s, with the hypercars. So you won't see any traction control or ABS happening out there. You will see drivers absolutely wringing the neck out of these cars, fully mechanical, having to apply all of their skills that they've learned over the years to try and get them stopped well and avoid some incidents. So we're going to see tire smoke, we're going to see chaos, we're going to hear some amazing noises, and it's going to be great.
Yeah, it really is going to be very, very exciting. And over that 90 minutes, again, a lot of these drivers, quite a lot of them did take part in the RaceRoom Super Touring Championship, which was run by Tomas Ribeiro earlier on last year. Of course, Ribeiro's been the driver to really beat here on RaceRoom recently. We've got a little bit of an entry list. I'm pretty sure it's fully complete, but yeah, just in case he sneaks his way in last minute, he's not on it though, which could open up the opportunity. But there are plenty of drivers that had taken part in that championship before, and some that we really do want to keep an eye on. You've got Christian Orban, who we're pretty well familiar with in these special events, Enzo Filippo, Lloyd Bidoff, who was actually pretty quick in these cars in the RaceRoom Super Touring Championship. There's also Daz Higgs, who's one of the ones in the rear-wheel drives, and those rear-wheel drives are definitely something to keep an eye on, especially on that race start.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be interesting to see if the BMWs can sort of fly away at a Ferrari Formula 1 style into turn 1. Will depend on where they qualify. But of course, with the length of race, qualifying is only going to play such a small part. But it will definitely make the first few laps interesting. And yeah, as you say, some familiar faces, but also plenty of faces I'm less familiar with on RaceRoom. So that'll be interesting to see some new names fighting amongst the top. You've got the likes of Yuri Kratochvil returning once again for another go at a special event. We'll have to wait and see if Tomas Ribeiro is going to turn up. We think at the moment he's not there, but we'll have to wait and see when the session actually starts. And we should be going into qualifying very shortly, so we'll have our full entry list. But I'm excited to see some new names fighting for the top, because it has been, as you say, an incredibly dominant performance recently from Tomas Ribeiro across a number of different combinations. And we also know he's got pedigree in these Super Tourers as well.
And whilst we say that qualifying is coming up, let's talk about that very quickly, because of course qualifying around here in a 90-minute race, you wouldn't typically say it's the most important bit, but even around here where it's quite high slipstream. But one thing that we do notice with circuits like this, so when we go racing at Monza, you tend to have packs forming, and jumping from one pack to the next can be particularly difficult. So I don't know if you kind of agree. I think qualifying on the front few rows is important. And if you're not on one of those, you're in trouble when it comes to trying to win this race. But I think between that, it doesn't really matter where you are on those front few rows.
I think you're absolutely right. I think if you're first into turn one or third, maybe not going to make such a big difference. However, if you're somewhere like fifth or sixth instead of in that front pack, and maybe a driver in fourth place locks up and misses an apex and drops back half a second, then there's a side-by-side battle between fourth and fifth. You can find yourself in a different train. As you say, the train's essentially split up throughout the field, and you don't want to get stuck in the wrong train. You want to be in that lead train, and you want to essentially hope it's as long as possible if you're further back. And if you're towards the front, you want it to be as short as possible. If you can work with one other driver, maybe two others, to break away from everyone else, that can give you a real advantage too. So there's going to be tactics at play, and we're going to have to keep an eye out on that first lap to see if there are any incidents that really do break up the pack.
Two handsome gentlemen have been removed from your screens, and we have some beautiful race cars taking to the Hockenheimring circuit. We've got S40s on there. We've got the Renault Laguna, which wasn't a car in the RaceRoom Super Touring Championship. So very curious to see how that one is going to find its way. Of course, there's two Volvos in the S40 and the 850. We've got Honda Accords out there. The Alfa Romeo, the 156, which was actually pretty popular back in that championship. We do have the Audi, but only represented once from Konieczny. So curious to see how that all-wheel drive power is going to get on. There is also only 3 BMWs, if I'm counting correctly, in Daz Higgs. You've got Prauger and Barton. Oh, there's a couple more. There's also Kratochvil at the top. I can't count.
Stjors Oyser can't keep it on four wheels either, going over the big curb there, what I believe was the Ost chicane at the end of the circuit. I do want to talk quickly about the circuit, Lewis, because although it maybe looks relatively simple on paper, big straight, tight chicane, big straight, another chicane, and then of course the kind of more familiar stadium section at the end. But actually, when you're on the limit here and you're trying to find every last tenth of a second, those chicanes become incredibly technical. Very, very difficult to get your line right. It's all about carrying the speed, getting the right amount of track limits over the curbs, because you can gain so much by cutting just the right amount of curb and getting the right bounce. But at the same time, it's very, very easy to just overstep the mark and invalidate a lap, get some track limits penalties, which are going to, of course, throw you out of any train that you're in. So although it looks simple on paper, it is an incredibly difficult track to be very fast around. And that's where we're going to see the difference made, I think. It's going to be the commitment and the kind of stability through the chicanes.
One place that I think you have to be very comfortable around here, as you would expect, again, circuits like this, circuits like Monza and such, you've got to be very comfortable with your left foot. Right foot if you are right foot braking, but generally I think most people should probably be left foot braking in these cars, but you never know. You've got to be very comfortable, though, on the brake pedal regardless. 16.4 from Christian Orban. That massively eclipses the time that it was for pole position when we did the RaceRoom Super Touring Championship. It was 8 months ago, I think it was, that we were doing that. There was an 18-1 on that day, so we're a couple of seconds fast. We are expecting them in the low 16s, maybe even sneaking through into the 15s. And you will notice they are driving around the circuit by themselves. It is a lone qualifying session. Yes, 2 minutes around, but they get to tackle the circuit with clear air left, right and centre. So we won't have any dramas of people getting in the way of others. Matej Mikiewicz, the driver, currently sat on the provisional pole position with Temenga in second. Christian Orban, Enzo Filippo and Lawson, the top 5.
This is a stacked grid, Lewis, looking at this leaderboard. There's so many top RaceRoom drivers on that list, but the key for me is the number. I mean, this is going to be a phenomenal watch with these cars heading down that straight for the first time through turn one. It's going to be excellent to see. And early doors, it looks like it's a Renault Laguna show up front, which of course is the car you didn't see in the previous race, or the previous version of this that you've yourself commentated on. So 4 Renaults locking out the front 2 rows. Of course, 16 minutes still to go in qualifying. Plenty of drivers still to set a lap time. And I think it will actually be a challenge for some drivers to set a decent valid lap in the first place. Because as I say, you're having to get so close to those track limits, use as much curb as possible, basically skirt that line between a penalised lap and a legal lap, and it's so easy to just overstretch the mark when you're pushing on a qualifying lap with all of that pressure. So I actually, weirdly enough, expect some of these drivers to take a long time to even set a legal lap. And the further that goes on, of course, the more difficult it becomes to actually get one in because the pressure builds. So it'll be fascinating to see how that develops. But a good start anyway for Mate Mikiewicz.
Yeah, again, say getting that lap time in, solid lap time right at the start to get that first time onto the board and have it as being a decent one. Jack Barton goes up to 7th position. We're looking at Daz Higgs wrestling the BMW through the final complex of corners. This was Cam Rogers' car of choice when we were doing the commentary in the RaceRoom Super Touring Championship. He was looking at this thinking, yeah, that would be the car that I would pick. I said the Renault Laguna, it wasn't even in, so I'm glad that it is here. Now have a car to pick. If not, it was always, I've got to lie, I can't lie, I like the fridge. I'm very much an S40 guy if I'm chucking a car around on there.
I do like the sound of the S40, but I understand why Cameron may have gone BMW, because it is, of course, the only rear-wheel drive option, and having a rear-wheel drive car in there is just, for a lot of people, it's more fun to drive. And I, for one, agree with that. I love driving the BMW, but whenever I'm in Super Tours, I feel like to get the proper, authentic Super Touring experience, I almost tend to shift towards some of those front-wheel drive machines, really. I would love to see a Ford Mondeo, personally. I'd love to see the old late 90s Mondeo in there with that engine sound. It's just magnificent. But the Volvo is probably the one I'd go for as well from the current crop. So many great choices, though, Lewis.Iconic sounds, iconic looks, and obviously these iconic liveries as well from across the board, really. British Touring Car Championship liveries, and also you've got your German Touring Car Championship as well, the STW from the late 90s. So iconic sights to be seen everywhere.
Absolutely. Didn't even catch that Mate Mikiewicz improved by 0.2 of a second.
Nope.
16.0. So clearly feeling very comfortable at the moment. As I will say, Hudak improved. Quite a few Hungarians up there, 4 in the top 10. Hudak, who is the lone driver in the Opel, shout out. Always love seeing people that are taking bold options when it comes to the cars. They're throwing around the circuit. There was also an improvement from Sven Mackenberg, who goes up into 10th. Tarek goes into 12th. And Crutchfield up to 16th. We will see, by the way, a few cars in the Renault Laguna, especially for what we've seen on our entry list, all in the same livery. That's fun. And the Volvos, by the way, all the same. Like, they're all pretty much in the same livery. It'll be a nightmare. It always was.
we were discussing this beforehand, actually, with the Laguna. Which livery would you go for? You went for the yellow and blue Williams livery. I'd go for the Nescafe livery, but it seems like everyone's a massive Tommy Rustad fan from the British Touring Car days, so we've got a lot of Rustad liveried Lagunas out there. Mate Mikiewicz, I haven't actually seen which livery Mate Mikiewicz is in right now, but I know Tomenga is in the Rustad car, as is Christian Orban, who you said was amongst the favourites for this race. I'd have to agree with you on that, and looking strong so far, right up there in the top 3, but 4/10 off is a reasonable gap. I just think around here, one mistake out of a chicane can easily cost you 4/10, so there's still a lot of time for this to play out. So we see Gorka Baron in another S40, the red one this time, going to come across the line, and meanwhile Philip Howe goes to pole in a 2:15.9, so the first person to break the 2:16 barrier. That's great to see. No improvement on this occasion for Gorka Baron, though.
Phil Lawson now through the effectively the final chicane and the run down towards what is now Mobile 1 and into the stadium section. The right up there with Lloyd Biddulph, who I said did quite well in the season. Didn't get a victory in the RaceRoom Super Touring Championship. Ended up finishing 5th in the championship overall. A couple of drivers that didn't. Well, to be fair, most of the wins were taken from Tomas Ribeiro and Bence Farkas. In fact, pretty much all of them were taken from Ribeiro. I think the only other driver that won was Andika Roman Milana. So we have no drivers that have won races in official competition in this car taking part in this race, which is fantastic. So we're guaranteed a new winner. Phil Lawson into the final corner and out towards the line. Is there going to be an improvement? Half a second up to the next car to get past Oiza. Not sure what there is going to be. That is an improvement by a tenth and a bit of a second, but that is quite a large margin. The top 3, though, separated by a tenth and a half a second, with Enzo Filippo jumping up onto the provisional pole.
Yeah, another Laguna, of course. So it's still 4 Lagunas at the top, and you can see just how much curb Soros Oizer continues to take through that first chicane. It was him, of course, we saw up on 2 wheels last time in that S40, and yeah, definitely looks like the chosen line through that corner. So I wonder how many drivers are going to be taking that much curb, or maybe it's just coincidence and we've seen it on 2 separate occasions. These cars are so tightly strung, though, Lewis, you can get them up on 2 wheels and with really stiff differentials and everything like that, you will see these cars bouncing over. We'll see what the approach is though into the second of these chicanes, and the approach unfortunately is to understeer wide, lock up the brakes and go again, as we now jump to Paul Sasbo in another one of the Lagunas, this one the Williams livery Laguna, currently sitting in P8, 1.7 seconds off, so just behind Oyser and Lawson, who we were looking at recently. He'll be looking to jump into that top 5 and make it an all Renault top 5, but it looks like at the moment like there's a little bit of a gap really forming, I'd say, outside of that top 5, so it'll be interesting to see if that closes up throughout this session. We do have the best drivers on RaceRoom here, but it is a large field, and it depends on how many of these drivers that are really up there in the, that are able to extract that final half a second out of these cars are actually in the field tonight, but time will tell.
And also, to be fair, it is a tricky car track combo, as we've said before. Actually, nearly, again, you're looking at it being, it's a corner, then a straight, then a chicane, then a straight chicane, straight, and then the complex we have to end the lap, as we've always had around the Hockenheimring. That makes it sound very easy, and it doesn't really do it justice. It is very difficult, especially down here at the US curve, where this chicane I've always found extremely difficult. And Paul Sharbo also struggling for it, clips that inside and went up onto 2 wheels, still pretty comfortable keeping the power and keeping his right foot in, but I'm pretty sure that was not going to be a particularly fast line through there, but maybe I'm wrong.
It's difficult to tell. I think we'll see more as well during the race. But it's kind of what I was saying earlier. It feels like an easy track to drive around. It's such a difficult track to drive fast around. Or at least if you feel fast, you realise, hang on, why am I 5 seconds off the pace? It's because every single chicane there is so much time to exploit if you can work out the perfect line. So it's exactly like you said. Very, very difficult to be up there on the pace as we now jump on board with Emanuele Mara. Can't see the livery on that Laguna, but it is another Laguna down there in 24th currently, 3 seconds off the lead, and yeah, 3 seconds will pass with the click of a finger, but you'll be looking to improve and hopefully jump into that top 20 on this lap.
It's a tough one, isn't it, when you're sat there in a Laguna and you're thinking, well, maybe it's the car and not, oh, actually, sorry, look at the time. No, it's me, sorry.
Can't blame BOP on that one.
Yeah, right. Mara goes through the Oost curve and once again will bail from the lap. Was great view there to see it from below down. Lloyd Biddulph goes up into 4th position, pushing Christian Orban. I think it was Prauger who moved up into 22nd. And we take a look at Matej Mikiewicz, and look at that lap time, John. Matej Mikiewicz, 2:15.7, consistently improving with each lap on this car. Very, very comfortable, it seems.
Mighty impressive from Matej Mikiewicz. He's impressed us before, but this is looking very strong. Even, managing to beat the predicted lap time as well. We were expecting lap times to be somewhere in the region of a 2:16 to a 2:19, which felt ambitious when I first saw that, has to be said. But now straight away we've seen a couple of 2:15s. Only 2 drivers breaking that 2:16 marker, but that is a statement for sure from Mikiewicz. It'll be interesting to see if Filippo can do anything about that lap time. And Temenga also 3.5 tenths back. That's close enough, I would say, but might just need that little bit extra pace somewhere to truly challenge that front row. It's looking pretty, I would say, set in terms of who the 2 drivers are that are showing the most pace at this stage, but you never know. There's still 7 minutes left. John Pound, you can see there, using all of the track limits, heading towards the stadium section in his dark green Laguna, the elf-coloured Laguna Nescafe. It's just another iconic Super Tourer, Lewis, isn't it? Jason Plato's 1998 or 99 effort, and he's going to come across the line now. See if he can break further into that top 10. He's got a 10th to gain on Mackenberg up ahead, and goes up to P9 with that one, does John Pound, and is going to abandon and start another lap soon. So a little improvement there for the Brits.
Do you not think, though, there's a slight tangent here that we'll probably go off during the race anyway, that sometimes when you look at like the Nescafe livery, right, it is a green Renault Laguna with horrible yellow-blue Renault written on the front, and literally logos machine gunned onto the side of the car, and yet still it's epic. Isn't that bizarre? Because normally you'd look at that and be like, ugh. But actually, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just because it's so 90s. You know what I mean?
You're so
it's
right.
Perfect.
It has genuinely no right to work, does it? Yeah. If you were to describe it to someone. But I don't know if it's the gold wheels or the dark green. There's something about that car that just looks sensational. I mean, even a Renault, to be honest, 90s Renault Laguna, not the prettiest car out there, is it? Let's be honest. I'll not be looking for one in Auto Trader anytime soon. But You're absolutely right. Something about the stands, something about also I guess it's just the nostalgia and the association with that period of epic touring car racing that just makes it fantastic. And for me, it's growing up with TOCA 2 touring cars, for example. It's so awesome to see these cars represented on a modern day sim in this sort of capacity with all these proper liveries and a huge car choice as well. And you can drive it on a modern sim with realistic physics and have proper, authentic, ranked racing on a weekly basis in these cars that is just phenomenal to take part in. So just massive credit to RaceRoom for getting these cars into the sim and providing this incredible platform for us to go racing in.
Yeah, and they are an awful lot of fun. Gorka Baron through the final corner. I've realised, just thinking about this now, I've realised that my mum's owned 2 Super Tours. Because she owned a Ford Mondeo around the time, and she also owned a Renault Laguna at one point, which, by the way, was rapid on the road as well. Obviously kept well within the 70-mile-an-hour speed limit that we have here on the motorways in the UK. Definitely never went above it. Christian Orban got ahead of Lloyd Biddulph and up into 5th position. Doutsenberg, big improvement, and goes to 12th as we see Schumacher here coming down towards the Oost curve, I believe.
Yeah, it looks like it. The corner at the end of the circuit, of course, which then starts your long run back down towards the Senna chicane. So we're travelling all the way from the south end of the circuit now. Furthest away point from the modern day Grand Prix layout, which some of you, potentially younger viewers, may be more familiar with. This old Hockenheim track may look a little unfamiliar to you and a bit confusing because you're firing all the way through the forest in a seemingly never-ending fashion. But yeah, trust me, watching old Grand Prix around this circuit, watching old touring car races and DTM in the late 90s was just a magical sight to behold. It really was.
You say our younger viewers, but this circuit was detonated a quarter of a century ago.
Yeah, maybe it's the opposite. Maybe it's our not old viewers.
So, no, read into that what you will. Schumacher here. Yes, Michael Schumacher. I think we can see him taking part here, MSC Racing, into the final complex of corners and on to the brakes. Daz Higgs improved to 23rd position. And up the banking goes Schumacher. Bit of a snap. It's quite easy to do when you lift off the throttle. If you're not fully planted on that throttle, you lift off. It's one thing that I always remember from Super Tours. The front-wheel drives are the most oversteery front-wheel drive touring cars you can possibly imagine. They love to step out on the rear. It is terrifying.
They are insanely pointy, aren't they? And they're just so purposeful in that front end. The rear end is literally just hanging on. It's like a bucking Bronco, and the rear wheels are just hanging on and going along for the ride. Everything is set up around the front end of this car. But the amount of incredible technology, Formula One level technology and development that went into these cars was absolutely mind-blowing. The minutiae of the testing and all of the details that teams went in to try and find that little bit of extra lap time, all the different ways you could try and skirt the rules and find the grey areas. There was millions and millions of pounds of development put into all of these cars. And by the late 90s, which a lot of these cars are late 90s Super Tourers, we've got some that are slightly older, mid-90s cars, like the older Volvo 850, for example. But these newer cars have some of the best teams behind them, the best engineers, Formula One technology. And it's phenomenal how much grip and what feeling you can get out of a car that is essentially, as you said, your mum's shopping car.
Yep, exactly. And they do get thrown out. Oh, she had a Cavalier as well.
Oh,
that's close, isn't it? Goodness me. Clearly my mum was
fan.
touring cars back in the day. Jeez. Oh, wow.
Well done, Lewis's mum.
Yeah, right. I guarantee she's never seen a British touring car race in her life. But
can I just say, my mum had multiple Mondeos, but none of them were built by ProDrive.
No, I was going to say none of them were built by this. Don't get on. Her Renault Laguna, I can confirm, had not ever been seen by the Williams F12. Don't worry. Matthias Stahl going through the final corner. These are starting their final laps, really, because again, once that timer hits 0 here on RaceRoom, the session comes to a close with immediate effect. So, any driver starting their lap times now. That's it. That'll be it for the session for them. So we'll get those last few improvements to see if anyone can sneak their way up the order. At the moment, it's Matej Mikovic on pole position as he's held pretty much the entirety of the session, save one improvement from Enzo Filippo that put him ahead of the Hungarian. It's a Renault Laguna 1, 2, 3, 4. Barton moves his way up into 11th position, just a 10th shy of getting into the top 10. That will close that qualifying session because there's not enough time for the BMW to get round and complete another lap.
Just to flag, Lloyd Biddulph in 5th position there, the top non-Laguna driver. That's actually a Volvo 850, so the older spec Volvo is the one that leads the pack there. You've got a bunch of S40s behind, but it's the older 850 leading the way, so showing BOP working well, and Biddulph obviously doing a great job to be only 7/10 of a second off the pole at the moment.
Yeah, I can't remember. I feel like he drove the S40 in the RaceRoom Super Touring Championship, but I think he might have tried the 850 once or twice. You could change through the season. In fact, you could change after race 1 and race 2, going into race 3. So a few drivers were testing out a lot of cars. I'm pretty sure one of our very good friends, Rob Wiesema, did 6 races. He drove 4 different cars in those 6 races. So, that's fun. As we get a really great low-down view here, going up towards what is now Mobile 1 and into the stadium section. Baron improves to 26th position. Check out the banking going through here. Lamborghini goes up to 12th, so just outside the top 10, was half a hundredth away from improving past Barton. Look at the banking there going into the stadium section. Really get it in towards that white line and dropping it on the curb. Beautiful.
You can so easily undo all of that lap time as well you've built up through the forest section in these final few corners. They're very technical, very difficult, but very rewarding if you get it right, and Matthias Stahl seemed to nail this one on this particular lap. Can he get the Accord up from P18? He improves in time by about a couple of hundredths of a second, but no positional improvement there from Stahl. He will have another attempt if he wants it, continue this lap or restart another one. Looks like Michael Schumacher as well will be ending his final lap on this occasion. I think, will he make it in time? I'm not sure he will. 27 seconds to go. He's still got the Senna chicane to navigate, so he's not going to make it round in time to set a lap here in the Laguna. So it looks like Schumacher will stay 29th at best.
Yeah, there is very few improvements still to come in. 10 seconds left to go, and Matej Mikulic seems to have pole position secured. And, I mean, look, a great pole to have. And one thing that will be a bit of a saving grace for them is, if you were to have watched the RaceRoom Super Touring Championship, the BMWs are pretty rapid on the race start. Well, the highest placed BMW is outside of the top 10. So realistically, they don't have to worry about the pacey starts. But even still, getting these cars off the line, they've got a lot of brake horsepower, and all that horsepower goes to the front wheels. It's not going to be easy. Here we go then with the qualifying results. Matej Mikulic, who is starting from pole position. Can he win, though? That's the question.
I think can is an easy answer. Of course, the capability's there. The lap time's been proven. We know how good Mikulic is. We've seen him performing at the highest level across multiple races on RaceRoom here. But the question is, will he? Because 90 minutes, a lot can happen. Very difficult to break away, as we've talked about. Could very easily find yourself caught up in an incident. Maybe a driver behind locks up the brakes. Maybe you make a mistake. And of course, pit stop strategies as well. These cars will not make 90 minutes without making a pit stop. So we should see pit stops. We're yet to see really how long the stints will actually last. So we'll have to sort of see where the land lies later on in the event, but there's plenty of opportunities for things to go wrong here today. I am, however, expecting an exciting race, and from everything we've seen, I think it's going to be a very colourful, a very bright and very exciting grid.
We've got 70 litres in everyone's tank to start this race, so however far they can make that work. We do expect it to be a little bit dramatic into the opening corner, as it normally is here at the Hockenheimring. They're in position and ready to go. 90 minutes on to the clock. And our special event here at the Hockenheimring, 90 minutes of racing in the Super Tours, is go with Matej Mikulic from pole position. A perfect start from him. We'll see Enzo Filippo dropping into second position and into the slipstream. Lloyd Biddulph with a solid start, moves up into fourth in the 850 as he goes side by side with Christian Orban. He goes around the outside of the Nord curve and will try and pick up the slipstream of Temenga up ahead. Already trying to break the slipstream. Matej Mikulic over to the right-hand side of the circuit before they get down to the brakes going into the first of the Brems curve. And again, it's been a perfect start for him, but half a second behind is Enzo Filippo.
Yeah, just look at those gaps coming down there for the drivers that are in the slipstream. So Filippo was half a second back. Now he's only 2.5 tenths back heading in to the first of our chicanes. You've got the Renault and Volvo battle heading in there for third position between Temenga and Orban. Runs across the curb. It looks like Temenga's also missed the corner there, so might be dealing with a slowdown penalty of some kind, or just losing momentum on the exit. And it looks like therefore Biddulph has come through to third place. We've got this massive battle pack going on for P3, and it's already allowing Filippo and Mikulic to run away at the front. 2 cars might just be enough to form a runaway train, and that's exactly what they might be intending to do here. Yeah,
everyone tripping over each other whilst they're trying to play for position is exactly what's allowing the top 2 to run away. Mikulic and Filippo are both very experienced drivers here on the RaceRoom platform, and I suspect they'll be using their brains just a touch and not going full send as we're riding on board with Andreas Tengroth. And he's got Stahl, he's got Lamborghini up ahead, he's got Lamborghini, by the way, dropping down to 17th position. Barton moving from 12th, or 11th was it, up into 9th. He has got himself in the top 10 in that rear-wheel drive BMW. Couple of switches here as we go down to the centre chicane. Not for the race lead, though. It is Mikulic still leading.
absolutely. It's a shame for Temenga as well to drop back from that top 3 starting position down to P6, because already, as you can see, if there was any chance of Temenga hanging onto the front 2 pace-wise, it's already looking very, very challenging. He's got 3 cars between himself and this lead pack. We now jump on board with Pal Szabo in the Renault, looking back at our lone Opel Vectra. That's a battle for P10 between the 2 Hungarians, and it looks like it's been a poor run there from Szabo, heading now in towards Sachs Curve, but nothing happening. And we've got a Laguna off the track. In fact, who is that that's dropped back? Temenga. Yeah, just as we said, it was going badly. It's gone even worse.
Yeah, and as we were riding on board there, up the road, and unfortunately a couple more positions being lost. Temenga, though, you're right, down into 15th position. 1 lap complete here, and it is Matej Mikulic still leading from Enzo Filippo, 6/10 between the 2 of them. Looking back from Szabo, you've got the Accord of Chevrolet Urso, you've got Rebello, you've got Pound as well, Mackenberg, who's got plenty of experience, and a whole heap of drivers queuing up to try and move their way into the top 10. And with another poor exit from Szabo, we could be seeing a position switch here.
Yeah, great exit from Chevrolet Urso there in the Honda Accord. Fantastic through the first corner, but you could just see there the effect of the slipstream. So Szabo had the slipstream of the 2 in front. The Accord pulled out and had to pull back in there. So suddenly we're looking at a 4-car battle potentially heading in to the Jim Clark curves. We're going to now jump back to 23rd. This is Yuri Kratochvil, who was looking quick at the start of qualifying, but is obviously quite a long way back in that BMW. There's contact between the 2 in front, and it looks like Yuri's going to take 2 in 1 here. He manages to get past the Volvo, not the Laguna though. So Schumacher hangs on to P21. Kratochvil drops back into P22, but a good move nonetheless. He'll be looking to continue to burst through this pack. Meanwhile, I think Chevrolet Urso has got past Szabo in that battle for P10. In fact, there's been a few changes of position. I can't keep up.
But there's going to be a lot of changes in position. It's going to be very constant around here, and these aren't fake overtakes. They are putting it all on the line here. Plenty of side-by-side in the background. Kratochvil's getting tapped there on the rear end. I think that might have been Franholz into the rear end, who's going side-by-side. Rejoining comes Kratochvil right into the side of the S40 and dropping down the order along with Franholz. That was very messy indeed. We're going to see that plenty of times, I think, this afternoon.
Yeah, it's going to be messy for sure. I mean, I don't think maybe Kratochvil realised they were 2 wide as he rejoined there. He maybe thought there was just 1 car on the inside that would give him a bit more room, but nope, they were 3 wide, and they were actually lucky to get away with that. Where Kratochvil and the Volvo Ferdholz just up ahead. Hopefully not too much damage on these cars. They should be pretty robust, decent bumpers on these Super Tours for a good reason, and you're already seeing them being put to the best kind of use.
Which, yeah, they're going to be pushed. They're touring cars. We're not here racing open wheelers. We're allowed to. Get your elbows out a little bit. It still is technically a non-contact sport, but technically is it's an open term, isn't it? Off the road then goes Hanhal, so down to the penultimate position on the grid, just ahead of Mara, who's unfortunately not had a particularly good start to the race. There is the switch position for 3rd. Christian Orban getting ahead of Lloyd Biddulph. I think Biddulph might have had a poor exit in the final corner, or maybe decided, I'm not catching up with Matej Mikulic and Enzo Filippo. You might as well have a go, and I'll sit back and try and save some fuel.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, give it a go, right? Orban, we know how competitive Orban is. We know how fast a driver Christian is. So Lloyd Biddulph might just think, yep, let's just conserve, let's push on and see if the 2 of us can work together to catch the front 2. I mean, it's still less than 3 seconds, so it has to be said, most of that work was done on the opening lap, Lewis. As you see a crazy 2-wheel moment for Christian Orban. It's definitely a preferred line through that chicane, but I don't think you're meant to get quite that much air time. It's not Knockhill we're driving right here. We jump back now to Szabo, behind the iconic Honda Accord of Chevrolet Urso, so these 2 are continuing to battle around about the fringes of the top 10. But yeah, Orban's going to have to keep that car on the straight and narrow. You can see it's affected the run there with Biddulph in the Volvo right up behind the Renault. Just maybe the bump draft, Lewis. I don't know if that's even allowed. I haven't read the rules and regs for this particular event, I have to be honest, but they have bumpers. Will we see some bump drafting? Wait and see.
Well, Christian Orban did overdrive the Oos curve there on the way in, just missing that first bit, drifted out wide. It's going to cost them a couple of tenths on the exit, so just dropping back even further off the head of Matej Mikulic and Enzo Filippo, who I think were having a bit of a look there in their ding-dong, but Filippo remaining behind as they head into the centre chicane. You talking about Knockhill? These cars, 30 cars at Knockhill of these. Woo, now you're talking. Let's sort that one out. Obviously, we need to get all of the people making content here on RaceRoom to get Knockhill in, which I'm not sure they've got other fish to fry and plenty of things that are coming to RaceRoom. Always constant additions to the platform, but Knockhill's cracking track. So let's get it, boys.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we're going to have 5 seconds to have a breather and actually say something that's not related to the racing that we're seeing, but I would say the recent RaceRoom update brought a couple of very interesting circuits. We've got Vallelunga and also Adria International Raceway, both the original layout, which was already very tight and twisty, and then they made it somehow even more tight and even more twisty for the 2021 layout before the track, unfortunately, was essentially abandoned with financial difficulties. So some interesting and obscure circuits coming to RaceRoom all the time. Knockhill would be a nice one. Weirdly enough, probably less obscure. I think a lot of sims have now got Knockhill, but we're not going to turn this into a Knockhill broadcast, Lewis. That would be unfair of me to do so. Meanwhile, though, 3.4 seconds now between Orban and our race leader Mikovits, and the front two looked like they were changing positions, but I think that's just a little glitch. There's 4 tenths between them. You can see them on screen now. So it very much just comes down to who gets the best exit from the chicanes and who's able to work together the best. But it is toing and froing a little bit, so we're going to have to keep an eye on these battles. We just know how quick Mikovits and Filippo are. I do believe if they can sort themselves out, if they can find a bit more rhythm and settle down and not battle, I do still think they're the most likely to drive away further.
Yeah, I mean, look, the important bit is that it's not one driver driving into the distance. We are having having Matin Mikovic kept under fair pressure from Enzo Filippo. Switch from behind, we had Lloyd Biddulph and Christian Orban going side by side. As we drop further down to Tarik, we've got Stahl up ahead. Manelli's just got past on Tengroff in the background, so those two switching around in the Renault and the Volvo. We've done a couple of switches in this pack as well. This one basically goes, I mean, realistically, there's a couple of little breaks in there between like Sven Mackenberg and Pau Chabo, but this train kind of goes up to Barton really in 7th spot. That's how much progress they can really make in this. You've got the Alfa 156 getting into a bit of a fight there with the S40. Lamborghini trying to get past Rebello.
Yeah, the 156, one of the sort of more forgotten Super Tourers. Really, a lot of the Super Tourer attention went to the predecessor, the 155, but this 156 was a competitive car in the countries that it competed in, so nice to see it being represented as well in this field. And Rebello continues to change positions repeatedly with Stahl, so obviously the two of them running side by side, as was Taru and Lamborghini for 16th and 17th. So yeah, as you say, this battle pack running all the way down through the south, that's an amazing view. You've seen those cars throwing themselves into the centre chicane in the background and powering down this straight. The engines will be singing these Super Tourers, 2-litre engines of course, normally aspirated, and just one heck of a noise from all sorts of different sides. Yeah,
absolutely. And the way they throw the cars around, they've got plenty of grip as well. These cars are certainly not slow. Istvan Huduk has been recently passed by Cheval Urso. This is further down. Julian Hanau trying to get back up the field with Gaspar Misch. He's going side by side with. I'll try and keep the Misch puns at bay, but you can't miss the opportunity though to chuck the odd one in, but that's fine. He did have a good look there on Hanel, trying to get into the stadium section, but the German was able to keep the Slovenian at bay. As we head further up the field, we've got Tengroff, we've got Schumacher, Das Higgs was having a look down the inside going into the opening corner.
Yeah, defending, attacking all at once, and that's pretty much what this race is going to be for a lot of these drivers, especially those mired in the mid-pack, which is what we're seeing right now. Tengroff with the BMW of Higgs in the slipstream, but also Tengroff's going to be looking at the Laguna, and in fact, is the BMW going to push him through, or we're going to go 3 wide? There's going to be some grass touching, and that's going to be a big shunt. And is he going to hold on to it? Tengroff just about hangs on to that Volvo, but wow, squeezed onto the grass. We were about to go 3 wide, and there was some pretty strong defending there, and yeah, that could have been a lot worse, Lewis.
It could have been. Tengroff keeping that right foot down. Why I tend to lean towards front-wheel drive. Actually, you know what? It was us doing the Super Tourers 10 years ago, well, 11 years ago, John, when I realised actually, no, front-wheel drive was all right. Because I realised that if you're in rear-wheel drive and you get tapped like that, you are probably going to be backwards. Whereas in a front-wheel drive, you get tapped, slam the throttle down. Just slam the throttle down. And you'll eventually be headed in the correct direction. Here we've got a great fight. Doutsenberg, we've got Rebello, we've got Stahl, we've got Lamborghini, and we've got Tarik. We've got 2 of them there on the left-hand side, 3 on the right. The Alfa switching up from one side to the other in the form of Rebello, and now looking down the inside of Doutsenberg going up towards the centre chicane, but suddenly comes through the S40, and there is going to be the position switch here, and there's going to be a couple of cars skipping over. It was Doutsenberg having a look from the likes of Lamborghini down the inside. Lamborghini could not get through without skipping over.
This isn't Talladega, folks. We're switching lanes consistently, and it's feeling a little bit like a NASCAR Cup race at the moment as we now go 3 wide, just casually 3 wide towards the stadium section. Stahl on the inside, he's going to back out of that one though. He's not going to fire it down the inside of this long sweeping right-hander. We're going to save the battle for the Sachs curve coming up now. The Alfa looking to the inside That's Rebello on Lamborghini, but he's not going to get it done, running a bit wide. The Accord looks wide, and that's going to open the door for Taru, who's going to come through and basically turn this 5-pack into a 4 as Stahl just drops back a little bit. But with all the battling that's going on, you're going to be able to recover from these small moments. I'm sure, regardless of how much race time, as we see Rebello losing a lot of race time on the outside there of the final corner, regardless of how much time they're losing, I do think these guys are going to be having such a laugh, that there's going to be a lot of smiles happening. And meanwhile, speaking of smiles, the lead 2 is changing positions yet again. Filipao and Mikiewicz. In fact, is this the first time they've attempted a proper position switch?
It certainly is. They've seen 4 seconds to the cars behind, and have thought, Enzo Filipao's like, right, well, I'm going to try and go through now. He had a big look there, but couldn't quite complete the move. Get the feeling that Lloyd Biddulph and Christian Orban are seeing that as maybe the opportunity to try and close in, but of course they're 4 seconds now arrears of our lead battle. We've only done 12 and a half minutes of this race. Look back to the outside coming in from Enzo Filipao. Bit of a squeeze coming in from Mate Mikiewicz. I mean, I know we've got a long time to go, boys, but that was pretty big on the squeeze side from Mikiewicz. I think Filippo might give it a go here into the centre chicane, but he's going to have to go to the outside once more. Yeah,
they must be thinking, we need this broadcast time, guys. We can't just work together too well and run away. We need this to be more exciting. So Mikiewicz is going to sit in the middle of the road. Which way is Filipao going to go? He's going to look to the outside. There seems to be a little bit more contact between the two potentially through there. So they're certainly using those bumpers and feeling each other, just working out, trying to suss out the psychology of the other driver. I don't know if they'll be in voice chats. Unlikely they'll be conversating together. But of course, these guys do know each other. They've raced against each other a lot in the past, so they will have a natural understanding of what the other's going to do. I do wonder though if they're both going to be regretting some of this battling, because yes, they have a 4-second gap, but it's going to keep on coming down. And if they get this slightly wrong, if one makes a mistake, as Filipao jumps to the inside, heading into the Sachs curve, they're very, very close to contact. So you could very quickly see this gap come down, and in fact, Biddulph now was down to 3.5 seconds.
Yeah, Enzo Filippo is trying to really find his way through. Maybe there are better opportunities. That is not one, though. Unfortunately, just like we saw from Rebello a lap ago, getting stuck on the curb between the penultimate and final corners. I've always said I think it is probably the hardest part on this track is that final complex. Especially in this era when you have absolutely no room to play with. Dropping down the order though, as we'll keep our eye on the gap for the race lead, but right now they are separated by nearly a second. Tobias Prauger is trying to fend off Tengroth, but he was trying to get past Franholz there with a look into what is now Mobile 1 going into the stadium section, and again they were very close indeed. No one's particularly shy in this race.
Nope, that is absolutely true. And we see Barton now changing positions, running side by side in that orange BMW with Anthony Chevalier in the Accord. So we're still getting a few position switches, but it has to be said that the front group now are beginning to split up just a little bit. So obviously Filipau's now fallen back behind Mikiewicz and will be desperately trying to get back into that slipstream. But Biddulph has also comfortably dropped Christian Orban as well. So the driver in P3 is going to have to do the work without the slipstream, and that is what happens unfortunately when you're in a big group, as Niels Doutsenberg gets it all locked up, all crossed up in the Laguna, somehow manages to get away with it, and again avoids two bigger hits or any sort of major contact and damage. So it's continuing to be incredibly feisty in this midfield. Michael Schumacher unfortunately has come across at one of the chicanes there, possibly the Jim Clark curve. So it's all happening, and it will continue to happen, I'm sure.
I don't doubt it. It was Doutsenberg nearly getting into the back. I think he did definitely get into the back of the Argentinian Lamborghini, and Schumacher is now dropping back into all of this, which I don't think he'll be particularly pleased about being a part of, because they're getting some big sends and all this, and there goes a spin for Prauger. I mean, it was all getting messy and all of that, but Prauger spins over the nose of Schumacher. Tengroth's going to come straight back through. Franholz, we're keeping our eye on here. He's now going to look from the inside, and Schumacher is going to maybe just grab his way back through. I mean, look, it's all just a bit messy in all of that, but it's kind of what we expect from this racing.
Yeah, that's exactly like you said about the BMW as well, Lewis. That rear-wheel drive car, much more susceptible to a spin if contact does occur, and unfortunately you can see just how quickly it all went wrong.
I think there is, by the way, I think it might be Mara who is also in this, that was throwing me off a little bit, who is not for position, but I believe is also a Laguna in this group. Whilst all this has been going on, gap for the race lead, since that mistake at the penultimate corner, it's gone out to 1.6 seconds. That was a big look from Schumacher trying to get past Tengroth, and as we head into the stadium section, is kind of getting quite aggressive onto the rear end of Tengroth's S40. That, I believe, is not for position, because I think that...
Yeah.
I was going to say, that is Mara.
Yeah, it is. You're spot on. Absolutely spot on. And I think Fernholz was so focused on the battling cars up ahead, the aggression from Schumacher heading into that section, that he just ran wide, missed the apex, and through went Mara, but there was no change of position, just like you said.
Yeah, I was trying to work out if that was definitely Mara's Laguna. Yes, it is. We can see here plenty of damage on the front end, but still clearly some speed in the old girl just yet. Trying to work your way back up. A couple of laps down was the driver who dropped down and was in last position until Temenga's retirement, which has happened fairly recently. Tarrett's gone all over the curbs, and Rebello might be able to come straight back through as we head down towards the east curve. The inside line will go the way of the Laguna, and the 156 might be able to pick up the slipstream by going back underneath, but it's so tight down here at the east curve. It's not really one I like to send one down the inside. It is way too tight around here to try and make those moves, and we still see plenty of side-by-side because the straight is so long going down into it.
Yeah, and you can see there, as soon as you try and push that limit on the braking zone with no ABS or anything like that, it's so easy to get it slightly wrong. You're travelling, you're carrying a lot of speed towards that section, and as you say, it's a very, very tight corner where the exit is crucially important as well. So difficult place to make a move, but you will also really be punished if you get it wrong on the way in, and that's kind of what we've seen there. But looks like there's multiple drivers making similar sorts of mistakes, because everyone is on the limit, and we see in the background there Rebello being passed by Lamborghini. They're going to go side by side, a little bit of contact, a little bit of two-wheel action. That's what we want to see from the Super Tours. Nothing too untoward there, and Lamborghini lives to fight another day. We'll go for Rebello again as we head towards the stadium section. You can see how close Stahl and Doutsenberg are behind as well.
For any of these drivers that were taking part in the RaceRoom Super Touring Championship all those months ago, the likes of Lloyd Biddulph and Enzo Filippo, when we were racing around here, we've already eclipsed the race distance that we did. We did two 15-minute races back then before heading to modern Hockenheimring for the final race of the evening, which kind of threw a load of drivers off, which was great. It's what I like. But right now we've already gone past that. We're approaching 20 minutes in. Lamborghini, we've seen a couple of mistakes exactly like that one in the hands of Rebello and Filippo. You're absolutely right, that is so easy.
Yeah, like watching that is, I just feel like I'm watching my own replays when I try and take on this circuit. Like, it's so easy to drop a wheel and the car will just not react. Everything is so on the limit and the car is so primed on the front end. If you just don't quite get it right, you immediately are just going to go nowhere near the apex. Like, everything needs to be absolutely perfect. It's a proper challenge to drive these cars well. As we see there, it looks like Hudak basically conceded the position comfortably to Barton to make sure they don't both hold each other up through the chicane, and that's possibly a good tactic, Lewis, to just, if you think the car's going to come past you before the chicane, just back off a little bit early and focus on getting a clean run through. That's all you can do, and you are going to lose the least amount of time. If you try and go in there too close to another car, it's going to end in tears, which we might see here from Higgs and Kratochvil. Let's see. So Higgs down the inside. They are probably going to both lose time now, look, because they're side by side through the first part. Then there's a little bit of contact. They both get a bit slowed down on the exit, and the two BMWs will cost each other probably half a second in that sort of move. But then the two of these guys are going to now go side by side anyway through the next chicane. So what do I know?
Well, they've kind of allowed Chevrolet Urso to run away from the group, and I think as soon as Chevrolet Urso broke the slipstream of Barton, Hudak thought, right, now's my opportunity to try and come through. The distinctive livery on that Vectra will head his way up into 8th position. Jack Barton down into 9th. Pound now knocking at the door, and Mackenberg is also there. 4 cars in this fight for 8th position. And Chevrolet Urso's got a little bit of a lonely drive. Since Enzo Filippo's dropped off the slipstream with Mate Mikiewicz, I'll say I'm seeing Lloyd Biddulph, who's been closing in just as such. I can't imagine the tyres are particularly good fun at the moment. The tyres aren't really designed to go for ridiculously long stints. 20 minutes, absolutely fine, don't get me wrong. But it's certainly not designed for 90. I'd assume they'll be changing tyres in the pit stop, at least front, or at least the driven wheels.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, isn't it, what sort of strategies the drivers go for. And we'll see, which pit stops are longer, if everyone's going to take tyres. I do think it's going to be a challenge to try and run 90 minutes on one set of tyres, especially tyres that are clearly designed for sprint racing in general. So, yeah, be interesting to see what happens there. Even in the touring cars back in the days when there was feature races, we still saw tyre changes. So, for sure, there's going to be changes. And you're right, maybe rear-wheel drive cars will take new rears, like those battling BMWs that we've just seen, and potentially everyone else taking front tyres.
I wonder if this is maybe a bit of an advantage towards the front-wheel drives, who should realistically see higher tyre wear, right? But that higher tyre wear will only be obviously on the front, so they definitely don't need to take rear tyres. It will cause a bit of an imbalance when you come out of the pit lane, but we'll cross that bridge once we get to it. For the rear-wheel drive, though, of all the BMWs, because obviously you're wearing out the rears by driving off the corner, and then you're still turning, like you're still obviously turning quite hard for us, so you're still wearing the fronts quite a lot. It's more of an even wear.
Yeah.
But you probably more lean towards wanting for maybe. But then again, I don't have enough experience in the car, so I'm sure all these drivers will let us know when they come into the pit lane and how long their station will be.
Yeah, it's a very valid point. That is an interestingly aggressive move there between Michael Schumacher and Kratochvil. But Kratochvil in the BMW holding firm and hanging on to that position. I was getting nervous watching the two Beamers going side by side because you just know that one bit of contact there, we could see a car facing the wrong direction. But you make a very, very good point. Front-wheel drive cars, everything's going through the fronts. So changing the fronts is inevitable and obvious, and you will essentially be able to drag those rears along with you, no problem. But as you say, rear-wheel drive cars, all four are working in different ways, so it's an interesting challenge, and I guess we'll see which drivers are well prepared, who's done full race stints and actually tested this.
Well, we are being told that potentially as much as the tyre life is probably going to be a big question mark, because obviously all these drivers fighting hard, they are going to be wearing out those tyres quite a lot. Some people say that maybe there's not going to be a pit stop in this race, that the 70-litre tank should be enough to get through the entire 90 minutes. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm going to assume that other people know better than me, as Schumacher flings one down the inside of Kratochvil, who will have a better exit hit in the BMW and will catch up to the rear end of Laguna and maybe go for a move going into the stadium section. We've got moves coming in from Lamborghini and Stahl. Lamborghini down the inside in the S40 and Stahl on the outside, dropping down to 16th position. 3.1 seconds now separates the race lead as Stahl continues to look. They're literally looking into every corner. Coming through the arena section, you don't typically see many moves at that chicane, but definitely getting a good look into it tonight.
It's fascinating because normally you race these cars, as we've talked about, for short periods of time. So it's a very weird sensation, I guess, to be racing a Super Tourer and chasing down a Volvo S40 with that screaming engine and not thinking about having to get the move done. Just thinking, well, it's a longer race. Do we bide our time? Do we try and look after the car? It's like everyone is treating this race like it's a 15-minute sprint, but it's 90 minutes. And we're just in, I guess, unfamiliar territory here, as Stahl now looks towards what will become the inside of the S40 now, heading down the first of our long back straights, I guess you could say. Barton now in the BMW as well, on the back of Mackenberg in the 850, but there's two cars side by side right in front of those guys. It's Pound and Hudak now, once again, duking it out, and we're going to see a four-car battle heading in towards the Ostkurve. Well, of course, Lewis, the Ostkurve used to be, and this was obviously before this is a historic layout in itself with the chicane. We'll get these guys through here before I get into a history lesson. And a great stuff around the outside from the Laguna of Pound, and Hudak now under pressure from Mackenberg and Barton. But while I've got 5 seconds, the Ostkurve did used to be one big sweeping corner, high speed. Imagine coming down to the end of that straight and then having a fast, high speed corner, high Gs, and then having to fire all the way down the straight as well. The speeds were incredible back in the day.
Yeah, I bet they were unbelievable. As we've got the BMW of Barton back down the inside to try and find a way through on Sven Mackenberg, but backs out of the 850 and doesn't complete the move. Further up, you've got some separation. So we've got 3 seconds between Mikovic and Filippo. The same gap back from Filippo back to Biddulph. 2 seconds from Biddulph to Orban. And then about 7 or 8 seconds to Lawson. Then it's Oiser, then it's Chevalier. And then there is this fight here between Pound, Hudak, Mackenberg and Barton. But there are so many close fights. I mean, still Tegroth, Bunsen, Prowser are all very close further down the field. The 3 of those separated by less than a second. Obviously, we've seen some great fights between Schumacher and Kratochvil, for example. This is just the nature of it, isn't it? It's just going to be constant fighting around here. We're nearly halfway through, we're nearly half an hour rather through this race. We've still got an hour left to go, and you couldn't tell it by how they're driving. Let's go with that.
No, exactly. And these RaceRoom special events are always exciting, always good to watch, but I don't think I've ever seen quite so many changes of position happening on a regular basis. It's got to the point where I'm seeing the timing tower moving around, and you just can't, you do not have the time to call it all. There's so much happening, and everywhere we look there's a 2-car battle, a 4-car battle. I mean, even in that shot there you can see You've got 2 in the background, you've got 2 in the foreground, we had 2 just up the road as well, heading into the Jim Clark curve. It's absolutely relentless from these drivers. Lamborghini's been right in the middle of the most exciting action we've seen here, as has Matthias Stahl up at 15. So these 2 are going to duke it out now, once again, heading into Jim Clark S's. So get it slowed down. It looks like Stahl may go a little bit deep. Can he make the corner? Just about makes the curve, but it's going to be a much better exit from Lamborghini, you would think. And therefore, we're going to pick up the slipstream once again, and we're going to go again into the Ost curve. But one thing I just want to point out as well is Philippou has closed the gap slightly, although maybe just a slight discrepancy in the timing tower as it pulls back out. Philippou was right there with Mikiewicz, Lewis. He was there causing hassle all over the back of him, chilling essentially in second place. As soon as he started battling and going for the lead, he made a mistake and he lost the slipstream, and now it feels like Mikiewicz has got a big advantage. So it just shows you, if he was able to apply just a little bit more patience potentially, Philippou, and avoid a mistake, he'd still be in this battle for the lead. As it stands, Mikiewicz has got a chance to just edge that gap away.
That's why sometimes going for the full battle approach isn't always the best option. We love it from the commentary side of things, but sometimes it's going to cost you a whole lot of time, and being big brain and trying to pull out the strategies and play the long game is the better way. That's not going to happen in this pack though, as Hudak's dropping back behind Pound. Tried to give it a move there, did he on Pound, but in doing so has lost out to the 850 of Mackenberg, who's in a little bit too deep here going into the arena section, into the stadium. Just a little bit too deep, but the Vectra of Hudak was not able to try and find its way back through. Now on board with the BMW of Jack Barton. Watch this through the double right-hander here. The rear end will try and step away on the exit of the corner. A little snap there between the two at the penultimate corner on the penultimate apex. But buttery smooth on throttle, no problems there. And you really have to be like that throughout this race, because the more you push that rear end round, the more likely you're going to have some tyre issues, the more likely you're bringing that crash into fortune. And it's easy to crash these cars. It takes a lapse in concentration of only a minute time.
You're absolutely right, and especially, it's difficult enough lapping on your own, let alone when you're running with three or four other cars, and you've got a little bit of damage, you've got tyre wear, you've got cars in front, behind, left, right, everywhere you look. So massive credit to these guys for being able to produce the racing that we're seeing and minimise mistakes. But we are seeing mistakes, has to be said, throughout the field, from the lead pack and further back. We're going to get some casual side-by-side racing here for about the umpteenth time in this race, as we see Mackenberg running the outside of Pound, who didn't quite get the exit from the chicane. We're going to run 2x2, as we have been doing all day. Hudak and Barton slotting in behind, and it's one of those situations, Lewis, where you're happy if you're the car at the back of this, just waiting for things to kick off, and then before you know it, you're past a few of them, you're right in the middle of it, and then you're in the mire, and you're the one who's running wide into the next corner or being forced out. So it's just it's constant and relentless. But Mackenberg in the 850 seems to have broken away just a little bit from these three at the moment, but he's got a long way to catch the escaping Honda Accord up in front of Anthony Chevalier.
Also a bit of a couple of switches further back down the field, so we're getting those switches up and down, and obviously great to see. If you look at the top left of your screen, it says 1:30 left to go. Do not panic, we have an hour left to go of this race. It'll update in just a moment, but 1 hour of racing still left to go here at the Hockenheimring Classic. We're looking backwards from Sven Mackenberg, finally up into that 8th position. Hudak knocking over the bollards as we do so as well on board with Sven Mackenberg. I mean, the more they battle, the more time they cost themselves. But then, what's the priority for this group right now?
Yeah.
They're not really going to be able to catch Chevalier, so you might as well fight.
I mean, what are we here for? It's a RaceRoom special event. It's all about having good fun. Super Tours are great cars to race, and as you say, yes, you could work together, potentially increase the chances of gaining a position later on if everything goes perfectly. But at this stage in the race, if you're 35 seconds off the lead, why not have a bit of fun? Get a little bit of broadcast time, and I doubt the drivers are thinking of that, but these battles will of course be bringing a smile to your face. Just want to acknowledge we've got the retirement there for Michael Schumacher in the Lagunas. That's 2 Lagunas out of the race. Temenga retired very early on after a disastrous opening few laps, and then Schumacher more recently. So 2 Lagunas out. Credit though has to be given to Emanuele Mara, who is continuing to stroll on 2 laps down, getting in the mix, getting involved in the racing, hopefully without causing any issues, but great to see the commitment there to complete the 90 minutes.
So easy to do when you drop 2 laps down to the opening portion of the race, case of an instant to just bail out of it.
Yep.
Tom Pound there, firing it over the curb to try and get past Hudak, and they're still side by side off of the opening chicane, and they're going to be side by side surely down here to the use curve, but no, Hudak will close the way over. But yeah, like I say, if you have an incident on the first lap of a race, it's so easy to think, oh, IndyCar's on, isn't it? And then just bail. But you sign up for the race, you want to enjoy the race, and you just want to get out there and, oddly enough, do battle with people. And do you know what? If I had someone closing up on me who was a lap down and I was by myself, I'd be like, let's just battle. Let's just have a good time.
Man.
Yeah, go on.
You wouldn't be happy if they take you out, but you would be happy if you got a good battle on the way, especially if it's not the lead. I mean, if I'm Mikovits, I wouldn't want a back marker, getting out the shield and fighting me to the death, but that's not what we're seeing here, so absolutely fine. Pound, it's looking very racy on the back of Hudak still. It's a good exit for the Brit in the Laguna, and it's going to be a defensive line straight away from the Vectra up in front. Let's see if he's going to go for a move down the inside as we head back towards the stadium section here. Laguna is going to have a slight overlap. Is it going to be a late braking move, or is it going to be back out? I think it's going to be back out, Lewis, because this corner, it's a really tricky one. High speed corner, massive commitment required. You've only got a small curb on the inside and a small bit of runoff on the outside that opens out slightly as you head towards the exit. It's a very, very challenging corner, but again, one of those corners that just feels incredible if you get it right.
Yeah, it is brutally fast going into the stadium section, and the stadium section is incredibly fast, but obviously all those who I mean, I'm sure we've all seen it online, the finale and the last moves coming in, of course, in the DTM Championship last year. They proved you can definitely race in that final sector. So, yeah, look, I'm sure we're going to get some big moves. We're going to get one here from Pound on Hudak, I'm sure.
Yep. Easy does it, straight past the Vectra. Looks like the straight line performance very, very similar. Pound, of course, benefiting from that slipstream, but actually I say that, the Vectra's coming back now, so potentially the Laguna not quite having the straight line performance of the Vectra. They're going to get very close to panel bashing down towards the Clark S's. And what's going to happen here? It's going to be an inside move for Pound still. Hudak's going to just not fight that one too hard, drop in behind the Laguna, but then John runs a little bit wide, so Istvan could be making a move again on the exit. It's just relentless. It's absolutely toing and froing, non-stop action. Lamborghini Pastel as well for P15. And just to quickly get to it, Mara, who we were just praising for not retiring from the race and racing 2 laps down, has now retired from the race. So understandable, of course. But Mara, after we've just gone through that whole process, Lewis, unfortunately, has decided to retire from the race.
That's because I mentioned the IndyCar's on.
Yeah, you reminded him the IndyCar was on. Barber's so good.
Barber is so good, not if you're Scott McLaughlin, unfortunately. But
no.
Look, he's all right. It's all good. I will say, with this fighting that we're having here between Pound and Hudak, we are having Pau Sharbo and Tarek closing up, and also dragging in Rebello as well. Look to the outside, coming in from the Vectra and trying to complete that move going into the centre chicane. This is back with Barton trying to close his way up into this mix. He's about 4 seconds off the rear end and is closing down on this. And again, the more they fight, the more likely that opportunity is going to come. 55 minutes left to go of the race, 35 down. No move coming in here from the Vectra into the stadium section. But this is the thing, with these cars, because they're so difficult, you kind of want to be all over the rear end of them because you want to force that mistake, and mistakes happen in this car quite a lot.
Yep. Driving under pressure, really, if you've got someone right up your chuff heading into the braking zone, it's so difficult to actually keep your composure. And as I say, everything's on a knife edge with these cars. They truly are. You've got to be so precise, and it's so easy to just miss it by a meter or an inch even, which will then, that incident will basically, continue to get worse and worse the further it gets, if that makes sense. It's compounds, and before you know it, you've lost half a second. You've given the space down the inside. You have to be so neat and tidy, but also at the same time aggressive, and it's an incredibly difficult balance to get right. So the more pressure you can apply, the more difficult it's going to be for the car in front of you.
Exactly that. Someone who's not having a difficult day in the office at the moment is Matej Mikovic. That gap's up now to 5 seconds. He is flying as Pound and Hudak continue their fight, with Pound ahead of Hudak. Pau Sharbo is there. So he's got a Vectra sandwich with some Laguna bread. Delicious indeed, with some curb being taken there from Lamborghini as he run aboard with style. Doutsenberg into the mix of that one. They've been fighting quite a lot throughout this race. They've had some great overtakes and some great racing. There's a look to the outside. There's going to be too deep in the brakes, surely. Yes, it is. Istvan Hudak will go straight on at Uskirv, and Pound will come straight back through. Pau Szabo might go for a move here coming up towards Senna.
Yeah, right in the back. The second Laguna gets involved, and we're going to get a nudge. Yeah, there it is. The first evidence I've seen anyway, properly from on board of a good bump draft there from Szabo, helping Hudak along, not wanting to get that move done. And I think that Lewis is honestly just because he didn't want John Pound getting away. If they went side by side into the chicane, if they got it a bit crossed up, holding each other up, suddenly John Pound's going to find 8/10 or a second and drive away. So sensible stuff there, realistically, from Szabo. He's also got Stefan Tarut right behind, of course, and Rebello just a further second back in that beautiful Alfa Romeo. So they will want to keep battling, but they don't want to lose track of anyone up in front, because that will, again, just compound. If you drop further back, you get into a battle, you're going to be 5-10 seconds behind before you know it.
Yeah, I mean, bump drafting is something that we would expect in something like this. Like I say, don't know if it's against the terms and conditions and the rules and regulations, but it's something that we would expect. This is something that I certainly would advocate for. I do understand, though, it's one of those ones. There's positives and negatives to it. Positives are, obviously, you can go faster, you can catch your way up, and you can maybe get yourselves involved in other battles. Negatives, number one, if you've got a load of teammates, they'll all work together. It's really boring, criminally so. But also, bump drafting is easier said than done. Yes, it's easy to drive into the rear end of a car and just push it a little bit faster forward. But if you try doing it, as Kotochville here, trying to go for a big move around the outside of Franholz, that's not going to work on the S40, but a great attempt. But yeah, big bumps will cause big crashes, so it's not a great idea. But also, if you bump at the wrong time, imagine if you get bumped going into a braking zone. Suddenly, your brake reference is well off, you're going faster than you thought you were, you probably tapped into the braking zone, meaning you got even less grip. It's not for the faint of heart, and it is not as easy as the best in sim racing make it out to be.
Yeah, it's not an immediately do try this at home thing. It's definitely something you need to practice a little bit. I need a bit of experience and skill to pull off, but it's something I have to say personally, I do enjoy seeing a good bit of bump drafting to make a race exciting, right? If you're working with someone else, I enjoy that element, that tactical element. Some people disagree. It's getting to the point now, Lewis, where I'm bored of seeing these guys side by side. If they would actually just chill out for a minute, we could have a breath. But it looks like we're going to go 4 wide. Are we down the back straight, or 2 by 2 at least? It's absolutely non-stop from this battle, and I am thoroughly enjoying it. Right now, we've got Hudak on the outside, we've got Szabo on the inside. In fact, everyone's on the inside. I see 4 cars in shot. Looks like the Nescafe Laguna is going to lead in the way. Hudak's going to look around the outside, but it's still going to be Pound from Hudak. Szabo in behind, and Tarut now getting involved. Will get a great run, and will now go outside of Szabo, which becomes the inside line as we head into the stadium section. But Szabo, of course, is going to have that slipstream from the Vectra. Meanwhile, I said Rebello was a second back. He's about a 10th back now in the red Alfa Romeo, and he's now going to potentially... See, that was exactly what you were talking about, Lewis. Didn't want to give a bump draft into the braking zone. Still managed to actually bump the car in the braking zone, but that was more through a mistake rather than a bump draft attempt. But it's just like you said there. If Rebello had kept his foot in and bumped Tarut there, we would have been in big trouble.
Rebello rubbing his hands together as he closes down on this fight, seeing 3 wide going down into centre, and you're thinking, oh, I can capitalise from this for sure. And amazingly, I didn't have a crash. It's one of those ones where you look at it sometimes as a driver and you think, no, they're definitely going to crash. And then they don't. It's actually infuriating. But regardless, he has closed his way in as the Portuguese driver. Hudak breaking the slipstream just the tiniest bit. Pound kind of has a little bit here. And if this trio fight, Pound might be able to break that slipstream completely and pull away from this battle.
Yeah, but Hudak's been racing smart so far and will be absolutely determined. The problem might not be Hudak, though. The problem might be Szabo and Tarut. And Hudak's having to go defensive here, potentially. Don't know if he needed to. You've got the 2 Lagunas side by side behind. This feels like I'm actually watching BTCC coverage right now. It's absolutely epic. Love this rear shot from the bottom of the bumper of Istvan Hudak looking backwards. But it looks like they're going to settle back into rhythm. 6/10 between Pound and Hudak. That is small enough a gap, Lewis, in my opinion, for Hudak to still gain something from the slipstream. Just wanted to acknowledge a couple of comments we've got coming through on the various YouTube feeds. First of all, Drazen Buddhist says this fight for P9 is better than Formula 1 in real life, and I think I'd have to say I'm enjoying this battle more at the moment, so that's fair enough. We've also had a couple of comments on the traction stream as well. Someone saying this game needs custom liveries. The vanilla liveries are cool, but to get this option would make the grids much more visually interesting. Perhaps a police car liveried Laguna, Lewis?
Oh, absolutely. Stick a big smiley face in the front of it, and I'm in.
Tarut now looking to the inside, but no, going to duck back in behind the Laguna for the chicane. And just one other thing as well, Lewis. We've got a comment saying, let's get the Ford Mondeo, Nissan Primera, and the 406 for more variety and greater racing. Could you imagine how stacked that would be?
Tick, tick. Yes, please. It's one of those ones, right, where I look at the grid and I think, I would genuinely drive all the cars. There is not a car on this grid that I wouldn't throw around the circuit and have a good time doing it. To add more to it, great. Obviously, the Mondeo is an absolute question. Primera is a fantastic car. I've driven it a few times, like in some of the series and such that we've done elsewhere in sim racing. Great shouts. Of course, it's great. Obviously, I've always kind of liked it. That green and gold livery it's got as well. It's one of the ones where you look at it, you think, yeah, it's well simple, but again, on these cars, they just work.
I mean, I'm going to disagree with you on the Peugeot. I think it's basically what the Laguna should be, which is horrible because it's green and gold and flamey. But at the same time, I acknowledge it's very cool. It doesn't work, but it does because it's a Super Tour from this era. And there you go. There is the working together. Szabo, Taru. In fact, I say that Taru's going to look to the inside, maybe just to duck out and have a little bit of a view on where he actually is. But looks like it's going to be an attempt to work together to catch up with John Pound in the Laguna out in front. So sensible stuff from this battle, and we do want to see this battle continue because we are all thoroughly enjoying it. It may be for P9, 10, 11 and 12, but it is phenomenal to witness. I was going to ask you as well, Lewis, what's your first memory of this track in gaming or watching TV or sim racing? Do you remember?
Oh yeah. Oh yes, I do. It was in an F1 V10 race on. It would have been GameStop Car Extreme back then, but it was thrilling and very fast, as you would expect. Terrifying, almost.
That's cool. Mine goes back to possibly Total Immersion Racing, around about 2003, something like that.
Wow.
Racing the old GT1s and Le Mans prototypes around the circuit on that game was absolutely epic. I can't remember if this game was on the Frosties Grand Prix cereal box game as well.
Oh yeah,
that I used to play when I was younger.
That as well. Yeah.
This track is so iconic. Yeah, it's so iconic for these because you just it looks like no other circuit out there in the world, right? It's completely. I was gutted when it disappeared, this circuit.
But that is the joy of sim racing in 2026, is that we have it beautifully replicated here on RaceRoom, where you can take plenty of classic cars around it that would have raced it. You can take modern cars around it that have never seen it. And that's the joy of sim racing, that we can bring back circuits which have been removed from existence. That's why having certain circuits which don't exist anymore. Obviously, yes, going back and making some circuits that obviously we've had, like the Classic, which is kind of the latest camp because they don't exist anymore. But still getting that immersion and getting that feeling and getting that aura of what the circuit was like, captured so brilliantly. And again, throwing cars like this is so good. There's such a good mix of cars on RaceRoom to throw around. Do you know what I'm feeling? We need to get the Group 5s around here.
Oh, we do. I'm just going to interrupt for a second. Lamborghini's dropping back. I don't know if it's a timing tower issue, but it's dropped back many positions and continuing to drop. So problems potentially for Lamborghini. And there is it, or is it a pit stop, Lewis? Is it a scheduled pit stop? Because we are now at the halfway point as of this second.
Indeed, we are 45 minutes into the race. There is 45 minutes left to go, and Lamborghini being one of the drivers to come into the pit lane. Will others join? We've kind of suspected that, yes, I think with a 70-litre fuel tank, there's no way that you can do the entire race. You'd have to be using 1 and a bit litres. Well, you have to, 1 litre every like minute and a half. And
not going to happen,
me
surely.
Flying down the A34 earlier on today, even I was probably burning fuel faster than that.
And look how many straights there are on this track as well, Lewis. It's not like it's not like it's a low power circuit, you know. As we say, this is officially come back together, and Hudak's front end reacquaints with the rear of Pound's Laguna. So there you go, back in a battle pack, 5 cars, and we will continue as we were. So Pound fails to drive away. I don't know if he'll be too disappointed about that. Honestly, I think maybe he will be right now, but once they start battling, there'll be a big smile on his face again. We've just seen Orban pass Bidoff, so I'm guessing Bidoff also in the pit But I did just want to acknowledge, before all these gaps start changing, we are still seeing close battles all the way through the field. So Misch and Hanel for 26th and 27th are within a half a second switching position. We had Buns and Fraunholt swapping places a minute ago. We had Tengroth and Prauser close together. You've got Higgs, Konetsi and Manelli. They were all switching positions as well. So there are still battles through the entire field here at Hockenheim. There's only a few cars that are maybe a couple of seconds either side of a battle. So it is fantastic to see.
There's Lloyd Biddulph out of pit lane. I was going to say this is actually quite good for Lamborghini in his battle, because obviously he's come out and he's got clean air ahead, clean air behind, and has still got a solid 20 odd seconds before Mikovic closes in. Into the pit lane, Oyser's dropping down. We also had, I think, Doutsenberg also dropping down the order. Barton as well in there. A couple of other drivers in the pit lane in the background. So yes, that's what you're expecting. There are pit stops, and they are coming about the halfway mark of this race. Now, what's going to happen with our top two? Istvan Hudak is once again battling it out with the Renault Laguna of Tarut, and Pound. Josh Pound is just about keeping them at arm's length.
Absolutely. I wanted to give a shout out to Anthony Cheval Urso just for being the best of the rest at the moment. If you ignore the Volvo and the Lagunas, doing a fantastic job running in what is essentially P7, but now it's P4 with all these pit stops being made. So yeah, just wanted to say well done to Anthony. We now jump on board with the Accord, one of the coolest interiors, has to be said. It looks so purposeful. I could sit here for 90 minutes and just talk about how much I love Super Tours, so I'll try my best to not get distracted too many times, but it just looks absolutely epic.
What were you in VST? Was it an Accord?
It was actually. I didn't even realise, but yes, it was an Accord. Red. Was I red or yellow?
No, you were
year?
orange.
I think I was orange. Oh yeah, the best. Yeah. Number one team, right?
You were direct teammates with Toby, who flipped it over the barrier at Knock Hill that you were talking about earlier. Matej Mikovic from the race lead into the pit lane. Enzo Filippo, I believe, is down on lane with him. Yes, you can see him in the background. So with 40 minutes left to go in this race, just more than, they come into the pit lane, also joined by Christian Orban. I was concerned when we saw the message about there being no pit stops. I was thinking in my head, I'm like, surely not. But,
yeah.
but clearly I'm gullible. So you got me. You got me.
Top three all in the pits, which means we may see Cheval Urso take the lead here if he decides to stay out. In fact, maybe Mikovic will retain the lead here, and it looks like that is going to be the case. So Mikovic retains the lead. Cheval Urso is into the pit lane, so it looks like everyone is now making stops, potentially running right to the end of that 70-litre tank, which would make a lot of sense, it has to be said. Is anyone going to keep going? There are some drivers still going. This battle breaks up. Hudak's going to come in first, leaving Pound and Tarut to continue on in their respective Lagunas. Looks like Rebello is also continuing on, so we're interesting to see how that resolves itself after the pit stops. We'll remember those names. We saw them battling for basically 45 minutes, so we should be able to see where they all stack up after the pit stops. But this is one opportunity, Lewis, where things can be thrown into chaos and we might see some big important changes of position. Not going to happen at the front though, because Mikovic, after the pit stops, still just over 6 seconds ahead of Filippo, so it's very much as you were, as the Volvo S40 runs off wide and Gasper Misch gets it sideways, I guess, laughing at the Volvo going off in front.
Yeah, Mikovic's only real drama in this race will come from potentially some lap traffic. Will probably catch some before the end of the race. He's got Lamborghini a minute 20 behind him, which will leave him an extra 50 seconds. To be fair, may genuinely not lap anyone in this race. I suspect there will be a couple of people getting lapped, but that's the only bit. Mikovic also could drop it, but knowing the style of driver of some of the likes of Matej Mikovic, some of the likes of Enzo Filippo, we're not expecting these drivers to make any critical errors. Sven Mackenberg, we're staring at the rear end of the Hungarian of Christian Orban and heading up towards the centre chicane with 40 minutes left to go. As we drop back to this fight here, we've got Oyser, we've got Doutsenberg and Fraunholt going side by side towards the first chicane.
This is epic to see. Doutsenberg really running it close to the back of Oyser. Potentially a little bit of contact there, very difficult to tell, but as minimal as you get. This is what we want to see. Fraunholtz will just sit in behind and watch these two with a big box of sweet and salty popcorn to see what's going to happen here with the Volvo versus Laguna battle. Oyser was right up there towards the front of the field before the pit stops, now dropping down to 20th, so not sure if it's just because of the number of drivers still to pit or whether he's had some issues there, maybe taking more tyres than everyone else, but he has dropped back and it's getting worse now for Oyser because he misses the chicane but rejoins without losing too much time, so potentially just racking up a track limits penalty there, or at least you will accumulate these warnings which will eventually lead to a penalty.
Yeah, if they keep doing it, they only have a certain number which they must remain within. If they exceed track limits too many times, they batter into other cars too many times, they will receive some significant penalties. Doutsenberg's very comfortable with the brakes running into the centre chicane, very clearly. Slammed the curb on the left-hand side, just about got it stopped heading into the right-hander. Beautiful scenes there. As always was maybe trying to feel the brake pedal a little bit after making that mistake going down to the Oost curve. So, I mean, you were saying it in qualifying, this circuit, whilst it is pretty basic, when you get it right, it is so satisfying. And I think that's especially down at the Oost curve. Because you kind of got to leave it out wide and then turn in pretty late. And when you do that right, it is so satisfying. As Rebello, I believe, is in the pit lane in the Alpha. But as we've seen so many times, it has been the most mistake-prone corner on this track. Thankfully, you don't lose too much from making a mistake down there, but we have seen a lot of mistakes down there, more there than anywhere else in the circuit.
It's not surprising at all. I mean, the speed you're travelling in there, the higher the speed on entry, the more likely it is that a mistake will be compounded. So if you miss the braking zone by 1 metre because you're travelling at such a high speed, that's going to result in missing the turning point by 10 metres, for example. So it's so crucial to get that braking point right. But it is, as you say, incredibly rewarding. If you can get through on the right line, if you just carry that speed and momentum, you don't run out too wide, just watching that delta grow, if you're underneath your best lap, or watching the green number grow at least, is just such a nice feeling. And you can carry that all the way down to the centre chicane, where you inevitably throw it all away again if you're me. But that's, I guess, what's separating the likes of Mikovic. Hudak now behind Szabo again, so basically as you were with this battle. Rebello, those couple of seconds back from them, so we'll have to see if Rebello can close that gap back down. And I'm just looking for who else was in that battle, Lewis. We had, was it Stahl in that battle? We've got Pound up in 6th and Tarou. It's Pound and Tarou, of course, the main culprits, you would say, up in 6th and 7th, potentially yet to pit, so we'll still have to see where they come out. But it looks like at least a couple of drivers are resuming the battling as they were.
Again, we are going to see this battling probably for the next 36 minutes and 40 seconds. There are obviously places where battling will elude us. That will be at the front. Matej Mikovic 7 seconds clear of Filippo, unless there's been a catastrophic miscalculation from Mikovic on fuel, then maybe there will be something there. Pound, by the way, I believe, to answer your call, is into pit lane as he drops down into 7th position. I mean, from Mikovic's point of view, there's no reason why on fuel you would try and get it quite close on the fuel number. Like maybe thinking that, if I put in like 60 litres, maybe that'll be enough to get to the end of the race. It's one of those ones from that point you just go, just brim it. Just brim the tank. I'm fast. It's fine. Brim the tank. It'll be okay. Stahl also, I believe, in the pit lane.
There was enough of a gap there. You know, Mikovic is proven he can outpace Filippo, because Filippo obviously made one mistake and dropped back a second, and from that point Mikovic managed to gap by about 5 seconds throughout that first stint. So he's got the pace, and as you say, as long as you're not essentially letting Filippo come back into that slipstream, maybe your pit stop's 2 seconds longer, but that gap's still going to be 4 seconds. That's not a slipstream. So I'm with you. I think you play it safe, you take the fuel, and therefore there's absolutely no reason why Mikovic would have short fueled this Laguna at this stage, and I don't believe he would have. We are seeing that gap. It's difficult, isn't it? It to and fro's on the timing tower, and it sometimes sort of makes you think, oh, something's going on, but then it squishes back up. So it's obviously just the natural sort of accordion effect that you get out there on circuit. This battle's been raging for a few laps though, Lewis, and looks like Barton has gotten heavily involved in this along with Doutsberger and Oyser. And yeah, as I said, don't know what happened to Oyser, but he's dropped so much further back than he was earlier in this race before the pit stop. So something definitely didn't go quite to plan for the pit stop, at least for the Dutchman. But the three of these drivers will resume the fight all the way around this right-hander. You've got Barton on the outside, Oyser on the inside. Now Doutsenberg is going to try and just push that Volvo S40 through. And Barton, as you can see, is being hung out to dry. Nowhere to go. He's going to have the ideal line into the next corner, but, I mean, these guys are going to get it done well before the braking zone, so you can just see the power of that slipstream and a little bit of bump drafting. Barton, though, looking aggressive and is going to turn in on Doutsenberg. It's a heavy defence from Barton. Unfortunately, it's all in vain because Doutsenberg gets the position. Barton back to 19th, Doutsenberg up to 18th.
And always has been able to pull away, like you say, a driver that we should expect to see in the top 10. Sven Mackenberg, one of, I believe, 3 drivers in the top 10 that are yet to stop. Also with Konieczny and Baron. I think those are the ones that have not stopped. Shout out to Konieczny, obviously driving the lone Audi. Lovely Audi. It is a tricky beast. It is different to all the other ones in the sense of every car on this grid is either front-wheel drive or rear-wheel drive, with the specific exception of the Audi, which is all-wheel drive, which comes in very clutch in the rain.
It certainly does.
We don't have rain.
We certainly don't. That's a very good point. It's yeah, I guess the four-wheel drive is a bit of a creature comfort for some, but it tends to be a car that is, you know, because it's different, it will have some tracks where it's stronger and some where it isn't. And with BOP and everything in play, you know, you're unlikely on a track that's full of straights, the heavier four-wheel drive system is unlikely to give you as much of an advantage as it might do elsewhere. Pound right on the back of Rebello. Taru's going to come out the pits and rejoin this battle. You can see them there in the mirror, actually, as Taru comes out the pit lane, just going to resume the battle as we were, but we'll be looking to get that Laguna up to speed as quickly as possible. Kratochvil not far behind either, so I think it's been a good gain, actually, from Yuri Kratochvil to get back up into P16 and find that little bit of time, maybe potentially join this battle. However, Rebello and Pound going to go side by side. It's going to very much help Taru get back into things here because he's a couple of seconds back right now. So let's see if there's a bit more coordination between these two. And Rebello's going to get up in two wheels very heavily through the chicane. That's not going to help anyone.
Big question mark there for Rebello as to how comfortable that was. I think the answer to that would be not very.
Let's hope he's not using a motion rig, Lewis.
Oh, mate, yeah, absolutely not. I mean, even to be fair, even direct drive wheels, that's going to be uncomfortable. I've got to say, we do have our first disqualification in the hands of Lamborghini. Expectations are, might not be the only one this evening. We've still got 32 minutes, and I get the feeling a few drivers might be quite close, have exceeded track limits maybe a few too many times, have got involved in incidents maybe a few too many times, so we might get some more.
Yeah, so we're going to make the assumption that would be a track limits disqualification. I would flag that Lamborghini had a bit of a strange situation going on with his position after the pit stops, because before the pit stops he was right in the kind of midst of the sort of 15th place area, and then after the pit stops all settled out he was down in 25th or 26th, so something definitely went awry during the pit stop phase for the man who pitted first, of course, in this race. But whatever's happened there, track limits potentially on his last warning, but he is down and out now as Lawson runs out wide onto the gravel and loses a huge amount of momentum and speed there, Lewis. That's going to be incredibly painful for Lawson. He's also going to lose position now to the Audi that we were talking about just a minute ago. Through goes Konitsi up into P7.
Yeah, great to see the Audi, and into the pit lane it goes. So we see there on the right hand side of your tower those that haven't stopped. Konitsi will now join those stoppers. We have more people that have stopped in this race than haven't. Still though in the top 10 we've got Sven Mackenberg in 5th position, we've got Baron in 8th. Tengroth will also come into the pit lane and drop down the order. I distinctly remember Sven Mackenberg and Marvin Mackenberg, when the Mackenbergs were both racing together, they were both very good on strategy when we've raced at, say, for example, the Nürburgring 2.4 hour, which I'm sure will be coming up a little bit later on in the year. Kratochvil will also jump into the pit lane, was running 24th pre-pit stop. We'll head down towards that area of the grid once again. Wonder if Mackenberg and Baron, of course, driving those Volvo S40s, if they've got maybe some tricks up their sleeves as to how they can play this afternoon to maybe get them a little bit deeper in the race. Mackenberg was 8th pre-pit stop, with Oyser dropping down the field and probably come out in 7th.
Got a nice little view of the interior of Laguna there from on board the Vectra of Hudak, who will basically now be working with Shabo to run away from Pound, Rebello, Taru, and form a 2-car scrap instead of a 5-car scrap. Bit of a shame that this battle has been broken up by the pit stops, but it had to happen eventually, it must be said, Lewis. Also, just want to correct myself, I said Kratochvil had jumped up a huge amount of positions during the pit stop phase because he didn't pit, so that makes a lot of sense. But has now pitted and is now back in 24th place.
One battle we are getting on this grid, though. Look at the left-hand side of your tower, 3rd and 4th position. Lloyd Biddulph is not out of the woods yet. He might be out of the woods on the circuit. He might be running around the Grand Prix side on the front stretch at the moment, but he is getting pressure on his shoulders from Christian Orban. Sven Mackenberg will work his way into the pit lane from 5th. Chevrolet Urso should make his way back through. I do think he'll come out around Lawson, a fair way maybe behind Lawson by, what's it fair, maybe 8 or 9 seconds. So he'll end up being behind Baron, but Baron also hasn't stopped. There's Christian Orban and Lloyd Biddulph. This is the fight for the final step on the podium here this afternoon.
Yeah, one of the oldest cars in the field, of course, the Volvo 850, but Bidoff doing a superb job to maintain that podium run so far. And Orban, you called him as one of the pre-race favourites, but of course in a competitive field like this, running up on the podium is a great achievement regardless. And Orban's going to look, no, he's not going to look to the inside. In fact, he's going to back out of that one nice and early just to make sure he can get it slowed down. I think Orban will be aware, of course, that there isn't too much to gain here from having an incident. I mean, they're a long way ahead of P5. There is still, of course, a chance that they catch Philippou or the drivers in front have sort of an incident or some sort of issue. But really, this is a 1v1 battle for the podium. And Orban will not be in a rush, I would imagine, to get this signed, sealed and delivered. However, he's going to make the move for now. So let's see if Bidoff is going to just sit in behind and follow Orban for a little bit, or is going to come back in.
I think definitely was playing that one pretty wise. Didn't want to go side by side for the central chicane. By the way, was Sven Mackenberg's jumped Lawson in the pit lane. So Mackenberg now runs in 6th position, Lawson in 7th. Wonder if that one will come back together, as a lot of our contingent have ventured into the pit lane. Christian Orban deep onto the brakes as they head their way back into the stadium section. 27 minutes left to go in this race. So doing the maths, he's probably only going to get maybe 13 or 14 laps, maybe even 12. Of course, it is a fairly long lap around here, but there's something like that left to go in the race. That many opportunities to try and affect the pass. Not only affect the pass, but affect the pass and build the gap. Got very adventurous with the curb there on the penultimate corner. We've seen so many cars touch that one aggressively and get removed from the battle that they're in.
This first corner, Nord Curve, is one we haven't spoken about too much, but you can see just how much that's changed over the years. Back in these days, that corner did not have a massive runoff area on the outside. It was a heavily banked corner, much nicer apex, much more satisfying to get right, but also if you run wide at that corner, you're not worried about track limits, you're worried about going through the gravel and you're going to lose a huge amount of time. You can see though that Bidoff just needed a reasonable run through there, and the slipstream has such a big effect. The Laguna bursting a hole for the big Volvo, and even though he didn't necessarily have a better exit, it was all fairly status quo. You could see just how easily, if Bidoff had wanted to, he could have sent one down the inside there of Orban. So I think, I don't know about you, Lewis, but when I'm in this situation with a couple of cars in a train, maybe this is a sign that I'm not cut out to be at the highest level sim racer. But I like being the follower. I like being the car behind. I like seeing the car in front, punching the air, doing the work, using the tires, using the fuel, and also just it makes me feel that little bit of security that I'm not going to, even though I'm potentially lining myself up to get things wrong and actually crashing into the back of another car, I do feel a little bit of safety when I'm following someone in a slipstream. I can just brake a little early, I can take it easy, and I'm almost relying on them to push the boundaries and make a mistake.
Yeah, no, I'm fully with you. I do think, especially in a scenario like this with such high slipstream and such high speed around here, I'd rather be behind at this point, because you know that you can get through, and you know that if you're ahead, you know that the car behind can get through, and there comes a point where they hold all the cards, on that the final couple of laps. So for Lloyd Bidoff, I do not hate the idea of sitting behind in 4th position. You got to be honest though, John. Like, you're looking at this thinking, God, you want to give one a go though, don't you? I barely race these days. I barely turn a wheel these days, and yet still, I look at these being thrown around this circuit, and I think, I'd give that a go.
I've done a fair amount of Super Touring racing on RaceRoom with the kind of it's no longer new really. I've been calling it the new ranked system for quite a while, or the new update, but it's been around for a good few months now, and it's really enjoyable. And I could race these cars day in day out. Like, they are phenomenal, so much fun to race. And yeah, like, watching this absolutely makes me want to give this a go. I hope to see this combination in some daily races in the next few weeks, so that we can jump in and do it a go. I wouldn't do 90 minutes personally if I was choosing my race length. Of course I would for a special event, but if I would love to just do 4 or 5 quickfire races around here with a competitive field. I think it would be absolutely phenomenal. But it looks like Orban and Bidoff are kind of working together, let's say, for the time being. Yes, they've got a 40-second gap back to P5, so they could afford to fight. But as it stands, if they just work together, of course, Philippou doesn't have a slipstream, so potentially there's still a chance if they can just find 4 or 5 tenths a lap from slipstream working together, from bump drafting. It's maybe a bit too much that, and maybe I'm being a bit ambitious there, but there is still a chance they could put Philippou under pressure and potentially fight for second in this race. It's just that the two of them have been split up for too long, Lewis. Potentially, if one had backed off earlier and they'd worked together earlier, they might have had a better chance of P2.
Maybe. That was Hannah, by the way. They've passed. That is not for position. That is just a back marker as we head down. Fantastic view there to see them go through the used curve. And I do agree with you, by the way. I would take part in this race, but the 90 minutes is a big question mark for me. Unfortunately, if you're of elderly population in the world of sim racing, which apparently means that your birth year starts with a 1, because everyone apparently is born in the 2000s these days in sim racing. It doesn't make me feel old at all. 15 minutes is long enough for me in throwing it around. I get tired after that, you know. I get tired. I want to sit back and read a book for a bit, and then I'll come back and I'll do the next one. It's fine. 90 minutes. It's a proper endurance in this car.
It certainly is. Yeah, it certainly is. I did a race around this track in the sort of 90s DTM cars, 95 DTM cars as part of one of the kind of launch events against some real world DTM drivers a few months ago, and it was so much fun. But I was knackered. 15 minutes in, I was like, gee, I need this race to end so I can stop looking in my mirror every 5 seconds and stop missing my braking points for the chicanes. So many mistakes. So doing it for 90 minutes is relentless, absolutely relentless.
Yeah, it is exhausting. Sim racing is, again, as I'm sure we're all aware, everyone watching. It is exhausting. If you're not aware whilst you're watching, I mean, that tells me that you're not racing enough. Get yourself on RaceRoom, obviously free download on Steam, and get all the content packs, whatever you need to get yourself onto the grid and throwing whatever cars you wish around the circuit. Trust me, it's maybe not comparable as a workout to the gym, but trust me, your heart rate when you're under pressure in a fight can still go through the roof, especially if you're right up towards the front and it really matters to you. You're trying to battle for victory, trying to steal it away. We've all been told many a time in the world of sim racing that we all sometimes take this a little bit too seriously. And I can sit here and go, yeah, we all take it too seriously. As soon as I'm behind the wheel, I'm taking it too seriously as well. It's addictive in that sense.
It certainly is. I'm not expecting a move yet to come from Biddulph, so we'll keep watching these two working together. Although he does look to the inside, I think it's just for a little bit of a breather on the front grille of that Volvo. But yeah, you mentioned there, of course, it's free to enter RaceRoom. That was beautifully in sync. Did you see that? That was like watching the Winter Olympics all over again. But yeah, it is free to enter RaceRoom, so you do have to buy this content. For example, if you wanted to race a Super Tour around Hockenheim, you would have to buy a Super Tour and you'd have to buy Hockenheim. But there is also free content available on RaceRoom. So if you have a PC and you have Steam, you can download the game for free. You can try out certain content for free, as Biddulph does, in fact, make the move on Orban on this occasion. So potentially feels like he's got a little bit of pace in the locker. Let's see what Orban does in retaliation. But yeah, RaceRoom recently released its first free car for a long, long time, for many years, the Alpine A110 Cup car. So it's a new car developed by RaceRoom with an authentic dashboard, and it feels great. It's great fun to drive, and that is free. So you can give that a go around one of the free circuits and just have a taste of the game, see what you think of it. And if you like it, you can begin to commit a little bit of money to the content that you specifically want to buy and try. Yeah,
but still affordable, still constant content coming out on the platform. It has got a pretty enthusiastic community that really do answer the call. If you have any questions, RaceRoom Discord, there's always people in there that will answer your questions. And community events, there's obviously all the ranked stuff. It is great. It is really, really good. It's a community we've been around for a long time. RaceRoom it's one of the older ones in sim racing, but it's constantly been adapted and moved more into a modern light. There's a big bump draft there from the rear end of Christian Orban onto the rear end of Lloyd Biddulph, rather. And again, big pushes indeed. Like I say, Enzo Filippo's way too far down the road with 20 minutes left to go. They're not going to be catching that, but with a minute off the race lead for Chevel Ursa, who's getting some pressure on from Sven Mackenberg, by the way. Chevel Ursa, though, in 5th position, is definitely not going to be any threat to this fight for the final step on the podium. So they do get to just have that run round and enjoy it. And I've always said this, John, I don't know if you ever remember back in the day, but there are certain positions that have more worth, right? Obviously everyone wants to win. Cool. Second or third, I'm not really that bothered as to whether I'm second or third, as long as I'm on the podium, right?
Yeah.
Same with like 4th and 5th. Either one, I'm in the top 5, it's fine. So this has one of those. Yeah, exactly. Your 10th. Yeah. Those. Yeah, you want to be in the top 20. Those positions where you're in like the transfer. I'm not really bothered if I'm like 8th, 9th, or 10th. I just want to be in the top 10. This is one of those positions where it's like, I think there is that. You really want third because you want to be on the podium. You want to be one of those drivers on the podium. you don't want to be the one finishing 4th, one step behind. Come on.
I totally agree. I mean, if you're finishing 2nd, you say you finished 2nd. If you finish 3rd, you say you finished on the podium.
Exactly.
Same thing with the top 5. So yeah, it is a meaningful position. And in a race like this as well, a special event on RaceRoom, which obviously these drivers that have their driver ratings to think about and all of these things, but essentially this is a fun event for everyone to take part in with multiple splits. If you can get a podium in the top split, that's what it's all about. It's about having fun. It's about, it's a one-off race. It's not a championship standings. It's not about accruing points or keeping it going. It's just about having a good race and yeah, I guess being proud of what you've managed to achieve and seeing that little bronze trophy. It's the fact that it is a trophy is what matters. So I'm totally with you on that one. I do want to say as well, we've had a comment in the chat from Marco Mazzini asking about when the next special event will be. Now, I don't know if it is definitely going to be the next special event, but we do have a slightly unique event coming up on RaceRoom soon involving the new Next Gen Cup car. So do keep an eye out for that. The Next Gen leaderboard will allow you to essentially take part in a lap time challenge in this new car around Gelleracen Arena, and you will be able to, if you can qualify by putting in a good lap time, race against some top level competition in a sort of special event that's coming on the 22nd of April and will be streamed on the Traction channel. So do keep an eye out for that one.
Yeah, and there's always special events that kind of pop up throughout the year, and obviously we've come off doing Daytona earlier on in the year. We've had Bathurst already as well. There are pretty consistent special events throughout the year, and even then, just the online community, like there's plenty of stuff that you'll find throughout just racing, but always good to keep an eye on when the special events are, and you might find yourself in top split commentating on by me and John. I don't know if that's a positive or not, but either way, Christian Orban.
We might be unavailable. Maybe you'll get someone else, and you'll be all right.
Maybe Zach Sweeney will throw his way into the mix. We'll never know. Maybe someone else. Who knows? Who knows what's going on.
So yeah, just to reiterate on that one, if you finish in the top 10 on the leaderboard, you will be able to compete in the sort of final event, which takes place with the stream, and that will be against 15 real-world drivers who do compete in the Next Gen Cup over the past few years. So you'll be able to race against drivers that compete in those real cars, the cars that you will be racing, and you'll be able to fight them on the sim, which is absolutely awesome. So yeah, have a look up the information on that one and get yourself involved by setting some fast leaderboard lap times. There's also a lot of chat going on about packs and individual content, and I would say RaceRoom does offer a lot of packs as well, so you can buy content in a group for a lot less money than it would cost to buy content individually. So definitely recommend looking into that. There are some very good value online racing packs which will give you lots of content for a low price, as we now see these two coming up on the BMW back marker. I don't know if that's Kratoshvili or if that's maybe it's Mish. Yeah, absolutely. So getting through just about on Mish, but it got a little bit dicey there towards the apex, but Mish certainly didn't mish the apex on the inside, right. So it was okay for the two on the outside.
And they were able to mish in, so no problems there for 3rd and 4th in this race, nor has there been problems for the top two. 16 minutes left to go. Matej Mikiewicz is leading by 10 seconds now after the early battle between himself and Enzo Filippo. One mistake from the Frenchman allowed the Hungarian to run away into the distance, and he's been running away ever since and has started to completely dominate this race. Behind him, though, plenty of battles, including the one for the podium between Christian Orban and Lloyd Biddulph. Chevrolet and Mackenberg will be within a second, I think, fairly soon in the fight for 5th and 6th position. We've also got this fight here, one of those big transfer positions that we were talking about, one of those ones where, like you say, if you finish 9th, you say you had a top 10. If you finish 11th, a bit disappointing, isn't it?
You just don't post, do you? You just move
on. Exactly. So for Rebello, this is an important switch. Taru and Oyser's closing his way back up after Oyser, who is a top 10 driver for this race, was running in 6th position pre-pit stop. Been an issue there for him through the pit stop. Wouldn't necessarily rule him out of this one. Rebello, though, getting hooked on that curb on the outside of the penultimate corner, and Pound is able to run away.
Yeah, we've said it already, haven't we? It's so easy done on that corner, and you can just see the curb causing all sorts of issues there, and how quickly it goes wrong, and boom, the slipstream's gone, and all of a sudden it's a hot lapping competition to try and get back into it. Meanwhile, Biddulph continues to push along Orban, so they're happy to switch positions, these two, when they feel like it, but they're also happy to run kind of to and fro. So it's a tactical battle at this point. They both know it's the end game here now. With 15 minutes to go, they're not going to catch Filippo, who's dropped further back from Mikiewicz, but they're 9 seconds back, so it's not going to happen. It's all about who's going to be on top on the final lap. So it really doesn't matter, Lewis, let's be honest, whether they swap positions or they push each other along. It makes no difference at this stage. Arguably, you want to be the car behind, you're in a better position, but the car in front obviously has the choice to become the car behind at any point. You can literally just lift off the throttle. So So neither driver has a distinct advantage, and at this point it's basically irrelevant what each of them do.
And it's great to see as well 2 different cars involved in this fight, Laguna versus 850, and look, it's going to be a good fight. It's surely going to be a fight that takes us all the way to the end. I'm sure there might be some big moves coming here and some big brave moves. Again, there are positives and negatives for both sides of this coin. There is positives for being ahead, positives for being behind, negatives for either side as well. Like you say, yes, sure, if you're in the lead car, you can lift off and let them go through. But if I'm that car behind, sometimes I might think, no, I don't want to go through. Not yet. I'll use my opportunity wisely. They've got 40 seconds to drop back into. You know, they could play some very silly games. They won't, but they could. Statistically, they could. As Oisers is right up the rear end of Doutsenberg with 13 minutes and 20 seconds left to go. And again, this car that has featured in the top 10 for more than half of this race in the opening portion is way outside of it. And we don't fully know what happened to the Apex Predators driver, but I'm sure we'll find at least some progress fairly soon. I don't think there'll be much more up to grabs past 13th.
Yeah, I don't know if it was a slow pit stop or it was a spin or an off or something, but unfortunately that is it for Oyster, and it's not going to be a top 10 at this point. Too far behind, unless there's some more incidents, which could of course happen. Tensions will rise, I should say, towards the end of this race, and drivers who are battling could end up facing the wrong direction if things get a little bit too exciting. Hudak and Shabo are still running together in 8th and 9th, but of course they have an 8-second gap now on Pound and Rebello, who were a pair, but Rebello, after that mistake we saw, has now dropped back almost into the clutches of Taru, who we saw battling earlier. So there's not much in it there, but it's going to be a different pairing essentially towards the end. Bidolf still chasing Orban, the two of them running along in sync. Filipao dropped back a couple of seconds from Mikovic, it looks like. Don't know if that was a mistake, but there's now only 6 seconds between these two. You can actually see Filipao up in the distance there. A couple of cars in between them still, and it is too little too late, unless there's a major mistake from Filipao. But it's, you know, the car's still within sight, let's say. And look at that view. It's fantastic, isn't it? Looking back from the Laguna towards the 850. And it's just so nostalgic looking at the front of these cars as they fly through the circuit. We're going to see a couple of back markers appearing on camera very soon, I'm sure. Not sure which back markers those are, but I'm going to presume it's Fraunholtz and Buns. I don't know if you saw earlier or you missed it. There was the BMW getting a little bit sideways through turn 1 as we were looking back from this battle.
Oh, damn. Easily done. Most certainly, and a nice one as well, John. Nice one. I think, yes, the back markers is actually what's dropped Enzo Filippo a little bit further back into this. He's lost a little bit of time over the last couple of laps. I think that is literally navigating some of these back markers, which can be a little bit problematic for you, especially if you're effectively the first of this group to close your way through. Filippo will know about the cars behind in Christian Orban and Lloyd Bidolf, but probably won't be too worried about them. Again, a driver of his quality and calibre should be able to navigate his way to the checkered flag without major drama, but sometimes at this point mistakes and drama can come out of nowhere, and they can also not be your fault. They can be a back marker having a spin.
Oh, Pound is dropping back, Lewis, in P12. The Laguna that must have had a mistake or something. Is that going slowly, actually? Hard to tell. Potentially just a mistake through the Senna chicane. But it's, whatever's happened there to John Pound, he has certainly saw him dropping back through the field there.
Yeah, as we say, I don't think it is going slowly. I think it's fine, but it's definitely had a mistake, which is why I'd assume it was something through the Senna chicane. Maybe on the exit, maybe a bit of contact, maybe something in that kind of vein, staying out onto the circuit.
Yeah. I'll be honest, I kind of forgot actually with all of the shake-up where Pound was, and I might be wrong. I thought I saw the name changing position on the tower. Apologies if I'm wrong either way, but it looks like it's all fine now anyway, so that should be grand. The Alfa Romeo back markers just forming the front of this queue now as we get up on 2 wheels for Orban, and that'll give Bidolf a chance if he wants to take it, which we're not likely to see, and you once again get a great view of the inside of the Laguna because we are of course running right up against the back of this Renault. And we now head down back towards the stadium section. Chevelle Urso up to 5th as well, Lewis. That's a great performance. He's been sitting 5th for quite a while now, and still under pressure, of course, from Mackenberg, but at the moment doing a good job and holding on to that P5.
Yeah, half a second though between Mackenberg and Chevelle Urso. That gap has been closed post pit stop in favour of the German. So that battle for the top 5 will rage on, I'm sure. The cars they've just worked their way through, by the way, in this pack was Buns and Fraunholtz. Those two are pretty close to each other on the circuit. So we'll maybe battle it out as well between them outside of the top 20. Browser and Konieczny will also switch positions, those two battling over 19th position, not too far ahead of our race leader Matej Mikiewicz, the lone Audi taking on one of the BMWs. They've also got the Renault of Manelli directly behind, so there's a rear-wheel drive, a front-wheel drive and an all-wheel drive all involved in that fight for 19th position. So we keep our eyes on this podium battle.
That is exactly what you want to see. And of course, the two back markers, Bunce and Fernholz behind, are also battling for position. So for them, that will be just as important. And the fringes of the top 25, which is not something we see very often, is the BMW. That's probably the biggest two-wheel moment we've seen all day. The longest someone has lasted on two wheels. That was Preuße, of course, the German in P19, just about hanging on to that BMW. Great stuff. But yeah, I just wanted to give credit to the drivers really for the rate of retirements. We've only seen 3 DNFs and 1 DQ from these drivers today, so we still have 27 cars out there lapping 82 minutes into a race that is a special event, standalone event. So massive credit to all of these drivers for putting on such an incredible show and also keeping it largely out of the barriers.
Yeah, which in race like this sometimes can be easier said than done, but they've certainly been up to the task. Should be 4 laps left to go in this race with Matej Mikiewicz leading by a whopping 13 seconds. These have gained another couple of seconds on Enzo Filippo, and I wonder if that is maybe playing a part as to maybe why they're not fighting as aggressively as they had been before. Lloyd Biddulph will just fill the mirrors of Christian Orban and will go back to bumping the rear end of the Renault Laguna once more, searching for the time between them to try and catch up to Enzo Filippo. I just don't think there's enough time to close up one. It needs to be more than a second a lap. And Enzo Filippo, even if he is struggling now, because he has dropped quite a lot off of Matej Mikiewicz the last few laps, even if he is struggling, a second a lap I think is quite a tall order.
It certainly is. Very unlikely, but you never know. You never know. It can just take another, mistake of some kind, an incident with a back marker, a bit of a miscommunication or something like that. Meanwhile, we do have a change of position though going on right now as Mackenberg looks to the outside of the Accord and is going to get that move done. So nice. P5 now for the German, and Chevelle Urso, who has had a great race, it has to be said, dropping back into P6 in that Honda Accord. But of course, now we'll finally have the chance to get the slipstream and potentially put a move back on the German, so we'll have to keep an eye on this one. And will there be an immediate retaliation? It doesn't look like it at the moment. I think Anthony's going to stay behind for now and follow the Volvo in. But what an effort from Mikiewicz, has to be said. So we will see a new race winner today. We had a comment in the chat asking if this was the same driver who won the Bathurst 2 hour, but this was Tomas Ribeiro. Did not come back to defend his special event trophy, which he's won a few special events this year, Lewis. It'd be mighty impressive. It did mean, of course, we would see a new face on top of the standings, and Mikiewicz has absolutely stepped up to that role right now. It's been a flawless performance. We haven't seen any big mistakes. We saw a battle with Filippo earlier. Mikiewicz very much came out on top and was able to just drive away ever since. It's been mighty impressive.
Sad to see Tomas Ribeiro not here, as much as sometimes people will be bored of seeing the same driver winning all the time. But this was the car track combo that started to move him into the limelight a little bit with the RaceRoom Super Touring Championship, where he was able to take home the title at Silverstone at the end of the season. And then from that point on, I genuinely think has been the driver to beat on RaceRoom. But Matej Mikiewicz has been the driver to beat today as more bump drafts come between Christian Orban and Lloyd Biddulph. Gap between them and Enzo Filippo, 4 seconds. Have only gained a little bit on this lap. It's certainly not come down by enough to catch the feisty Frenchman that sits in second position, and with 3 laps to go. Again, that time they need to close down, it grows and grows and grows. They need to close down a second and a half a lap really to get there, to even have an opportunity at this point of the circuit on the final lap, and imagine the pressure on that. So I do get the feeling that Lloyd Biddulph has probably got that in his mind and is maybe starting to think, right, there is a Laguna ahead of me, separating me from the final step of the podium. How do I get past him? When do I get past him?
Yeah, so the easiest place to guarantee an overtake would be the first large straight after this first corner, which we're coming up to now. So we're coming towards Nord Curve, or we were coming towards Nord Curve with those two. That straight is the longest. That is the easiest place to guarantee a move. However, you're leaving yourself the most open for a retaliation. I think it's about whether or not you feel confident enough to make the move between Ost and Senna chicanes. or whether you think you can do it after the center chicanes running down towards the mobile curve, which we are running towards now, I believe, with these two. So Mackenberg and Chevalier, so we have changed places here before. But I think Lewis, the safest place to do it, the place where I think I would, based on what I've seen today, would be make the move between Ost and Senna. Get your exit right out of Ost, get it done before the center chicane, and hope that you've got enough of an exit so that you can prevent an immediate retaliation on the shorter run towards Mobile 1.
100%. And this is the thing, this is a racing driver, how you need to be playing these parts. You need to be thinking of when is the right time to get ahead. If you go too early, say for example going into the opening chicane, you will most likely be passed at some other point. Lloyd Biddulph is looking to the outside, heading down into the Ust curve. This is
dress rehearsal?
Maybe a little bit, just trying to fill the mirrors, maybe force that mistake. This is the ante-penultimate lap. Hate that word, but love using it. The penultimate lap will follow this, and then the last one afterwards. Just 3 laps left to go with Matej Mikiewicz leading. Once he crosses the line, there will be just 2. And maybe not just a dress rehearsal. Maybe this is a full go for Lloyd Biddulph. He looks to the inside, heading up towards Senna. He will try and pass Christian Orban here, and the Laguna will drop back down into 4th position. That is maybe not so bad, though, for the Hungarian.
Well, there's proof of concept, Lewis. He's managed to get the move done. I thought he was actually maybe too close to the back of the Laguna heading out of Ost curve. He wasn't able to get a slingshot run with the slipstream. He had to pull out very quickly and go to the outside. I thought it might not be enough, but actually it worked out perfectly, because then Lloyd was side by side with Orban into the braking zone of the Senna chicane with the correct line, and that actually meant that Orban was forced to lose even more time, essentially conceding the position. If Orban had been able to follow Biddulph and get back in line earlier, maybe would have got a better exit from the chicane and been able to retaliate. So there's so much tactical nuance at play here. It's not also a guarantee, Lewis, that you can get the move done. You know, you need to absolutely perfect your run from the Ost curve to be able to actually get that move signed, sealed and delivered. And this is what we're seeing again, another side-by-side battle. And this time it looks like Mackenberg backed out of that one versus Chevalier. So it's no guarantee that by waiting until the right moment to get the move done, you'll be in the position to do it. So do you go early to guarantee it, or do you wait until the perfect moment and hope you get it right?
Well, if this was the last lap, though, that's the thing, is that Sven Mackenberg has dropped back behind and effectively given it going into the Senna chicane, and then has had the speed to take it alongside heading into the stadium section. Still a bit of an overlap there for the 850 on the inside, and they're still going to go side by side as they head their way into the stadium proper. But it will be Chevalier just ahead in 5th position as the drivers head round. These ones starting their penultimate lap of the race. Matej Mikiewicz, almost halfway around now, is so in control. Again, that gap is monstrous. Lloyd Biddulph, though, just on that final step of the podium with them. The battle for 3rd, the battle for 5th. There's battles up and down the order. There's battle for 8th position between Charbot and Hudak as well. Again, some great fights here this afternoon. I'm sure we'll take our breath away on this penultimate and final lap.
What I'm seeing as well, Lewis, the evidence of these 2 battles that we've just witnessed. One battle, the position did change between Ost and Senna and not between Senna and Mobile 1. The other battle didn't change between Ost and Senna and did change between Senna and Mobile 1. So it's completely up in the air right now. You know, it's not a guarantee of where you're going to be able to get these moves done. So that's fantastic to see, and it means that we're going to have a very, very exciting final lap to this race, which is coming up very soon. Biddulph got the upper hand at the moment, Orban in behind in the Laguna, but as I say, it's maybe potentially an advantage to be behind. You've also got the question, of course, of which car is better in which area. And the 850 has proven its straight line capabilities throughout the day. But that being said, the Laguna is clearly the car of choice for our front 2 and could be locking out a podium still. So fascinating stuff.
Dominant fashion. Matej Mikiewicz is going to come through the final corner and begin the final lap of the race. He has another 6.8 kilometres to navigate around the Hockenheimring Classic circuit, and he will be crowned our race winner here this afternoon. It has been a perfect drive. We'll pick that one to pieces in a few moments' time. We've got some battles to deal with. It's not for second spot. Enzo Filippo is comfortably clear. It is going to be for that final step on the podium. Christian Orban, sat behind, has the cards in his hand. When does he go?
That is the question. And we're going to see on this lap, it's looking like a push at the moment. This was predictable, so Orban doesn't want to get the move done yet, and I'd have to agree with him that that's the sensible choice. So pushing Biddulph along the straight, of course, with all the gap that they've got, it's completely irrelevant what happens right now, but he's going to be applying as much pressure as possible to the Brit, and then pulling out in order to see that braking zone very, very shortly. So I don't think we'll see any heroics into this chicane. I honestly don't think Lewis will see an attempted move after the chicane either. The question is, how close can Orban stay to the back of Biddulph to prioritise the next chicane?
Guarantee that there is going to be a big look here from Lloyd Biddulph exactly when Matej Mikulic crosses the line, just to make things super difficult for us. You know what it's like. Again, is there going to be the look here? Christian Orban is just behind, going into the Usk curve, will not go for a move. He is filling those mirrors, clips the curves brilliantly, does Lloyd Biddulph. This is where you were suggesting the move might come in. Heading round to Senna, carrying the speed, going round the high side of the exit of the Usk curve. He's going to be closing in, using that slipstream right onto the rear end of the 850. Christian Orban is trying to go for the move to set up the final position on the podium and make it all Lagunas, locking out those top 3 spots. Does not have the speed to try it here though down to the Senna. Is going to have to be going into the stadium section. How brave will the Hungarian be? That will be the question we'll have to answer in a few moments' time. Matej Mikulic is heading into that final complex already. It has been a perfect drive from Mikulic this afternoon. Since pulling away from Enzo Filippo, he has absolutely dominated proceedings. He's got a couple of corners left to tick off, and Matej Mikulic will come through the final corner to win the RaceRoom Super Touring Hockenheim Special. Out of the corner, dominated for 90 minutes. Mikulic will win. It'll be Filippo behind in second position, but who's going to be on the podium? Side by side between them. Christian Orban trying to make the move and trying to force the position on Lloyd Biddulph, who's got the inside line of the 850 as they head their way to the penultimate corner. Straight to the outside. More contact, more leading, more super touring action between the pair of them. It's going to be a drag race between them up towards the line. Lloyd Biddulph with the inside line. Is he just about to hang on?
Wow.
What a fantastic fight for the podium. It is going to be Biddulph in the 850, just securing the final step on the podium.
Absolutely epic between the two of those for that podium battle. And it looks like as well in P5 it's going to be Cheval Urso ahead of Mackenberg. So that battle, though not quite over yet, I think the gap is there. 6/10 between the two of them. That should stay the same. First of all, a quick word on Mikulic. Sensational effort. Filippo as well. Great stuff. Just not quite on the level of Mikulic today. And I did not expect to see them running side by side for the last 3 or 4 corners in a row, Lewis. That was sensational stuff. But it was Biddulph who ended up coming out on top and stopping it from being an all Laguna top 3. So excellent stuff, superb to watch. Mackenberg's not going to quite have enough here in this battle for P5, so it's going to be Anthony Cheval Urso who picks up 5th place in the Honda Accord. Mackenberg will be 6th, and then Lawson, Szabo and Hudak, who are still battling, it has to be said, for P8 at the moment, will round off along with Rebello your top 10.
Great post pit stop stint there from Mackenberg, but Cheval Urso had a great opening stint to the race, working his way up the order, ended up finishing in the top 5. Great drive for the Honda Accord. Lawson across the line just ahead of Szabo, then Hudak. Rebello is the next one to come through. Feeling an awful lot of pressure here from Taru. He's going to just about hang on to the top 10. One of those important positions we were talking about. The weave
just to
coming
flag
in
as well,
Taru.
Lewis. Doutsenberg got past Pound on that final lap in the background there, so just to flag that one. And final lap move for P12.
Absolutely. Again, we are going to get a couple of drag races. Anything else quite close? Barton versus Baron. About a second between the pair of them as they enter the final complex of corners. Whoa! There was really a big crash post-race there. We'll dissect that one. Never. Don't worry, we'll ignore it. Barton and Baron will cross the line. We've only got a couple more cars to do so. But Mikulic, I mean, what more superlatives can you throw his direction? It's been brilliant this afternoon.
Yeah, absolutely. We obviously wanted to see a little bit more of a battle for the first 2 positions, but Mikulic just had too much for Filippo, honestly. We saw them battle early on. You can see the fastest lap time there as well. It's a 2:16.2 for Mikulic compared to the 16.4 from Filippo. So those two were in a league of their own, absolutely deserving of the positions they finished. And likewise, the battle for 3rd, you can see how similar the pace was there. So I think, honestly, Lewis, with everything being said and done, we've got the right finishing order. But most importantly, I mean, what a fun race to watch. And I'm sure what a great fun race to have taken part in for these drivers. And not just in Split 1, also all the way down to the final splits. I'm sure a lot of fun has been had this evening.
Yeah, I mean, you can see your finishing order there. Mikulic, Filippo, Biddulph, Orban, Cheval Urso, Mackenberg, then Lawson, Szabo, Hudak and Rebello being the top 10. Behind that it will be Taru, Doutsenberg, Pound, who were just able, I mean, to be fair, Taru was just missing out on working his way through into the top 10, wasn't he? Doutsenberg will be behind that, then Pound, Oyser, Stahl, Tengroth, Barton, Barron, Peralza and Manelli. Behind that, Kratochville had some good speed. I mean, to be fair, a couple of Oyser also had some good speed pre-pit stop, but unfortunately had that issue. Kratochville finished in 21st position, then it was Higgs, Franholtz, Buns, Then, of course, Mish, Hanel, Mara, Schumacher and Temenga would be 3 retirements from the race, with a single disqualification as well. John, that was great. That was fantastic. Mikiewicz was brilliant. We had some great fights. What a move between, what battle rather, between Bidoff and Orban. Bidoff just able to hang on to that final step on the podium.
It was all so tactical, wasn't it? You know, trying to decide when the move was going to come, and we saw the attempt made where we expected it to be made, but it didn't get pulled off. Somehow they still ended up side by side through the last 4 corners. So excellent stuff. But I have to say, all the drivers deserve a lot of credit. I mean, the 5-car battle we saw for around about the top 10 positions earlier on in this race lasted for about 40 minutes continuously, which was epic. We saw our battle for the lead. And as you keep saying, Mikiewicz, I mean, there's nothing else you can put towards him other than well done, you know, flawless effort from what we could see. I'm sure there was the odd little mistake in there, but nothing that you could perceive from where we were sitting. So great stuff. And yeah, just another fantastic special event in RaceRoom. Those 90 minutes flew by, and I hope you watching at home all enjoyed the action as much as we did.
Exactly. And again, to give a little bit more plaudits to our drivers, again, we had a 30-car grid there. Only 3 retirements. They were all pretty early. Only 1 disqualification in the form of Lamborghini. I mean, what do you make of that? I'm sure we've got some similar stories up and down the grid and all the splits. But these special events, it is that endurance spirit of trying to get to the end of the race.
Yeah, it was a strange one because it was an endurance race, but it very much felt like a sprint race. You know, every single lap felt like you were watching a 15-minute battle. And we saw drivers continuing to be closely matched throughout the whole field for the entirety of the 90 minutes. You know, we saw battles for P25, 27, 29 at certain points. You know, it continued throughout, and that was great to see. And obviously the drivers were enjoying it because we did not see many retirements. And despite a lot of contact, I'm sure, a lot of close calls, two-wheeled action, and I'm sure some slightly dodgy attacking and defending maneuvers, largely things were kept clean. You know, we only saw 1 major incident, and even that resulted in cars getting away with it and continuing on. So just big credit to all the drivers for keeping it on the black stuff, and the majority of the field finishing a 90-minute race.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, we've had a lot of fun here over the 90 minutes of racing. We hope you have as well. If you have, obviously, subscribe to RaceRoom, subscribe to the Traction channel. We've, of course, been our broadcast partners here at the Hockenheimring. We've had a great time throughout this event. From myself, as we go, from John Monroe. We hope to see you in the next event coming up next month. But for us here in the RaceRoom Super Touring race here at Hockenheimring, that is us over and out. We'll see you next time. Until then, though, have a very warm bye-bye.